Chapter 15 Vespa Crabro. The midday sun was shining overhead and over bed when I woke up. I'd slept for a while, hadn't I? I barely managed to get up and unwind the bandages around my body. It seems most of my injuries healed up overnight, thanks to the HP tablet I took. The first thing I saw as I opened the door and leave the room was Urza having lunch at the table. Detective, did you have a good rest? Urza cheerfully greets me from the seat. She was back to her usual, lively self, having shaken off all the fatigue and gloom that was weighing her down yesterday. Yeah, is your body alright? Yep, I'm totally peppy now. What would you like to have for lunch, detective? I don't feel like eating. My pipe made its way back into my usual position, and I headed to the terrace. There's quite a few things I need to look into. Urza, is Yuria in her room? Mm-hmm. She said she's gonna inspect the black box we brought from Tai Young Produce Co. I do like her tendency to take the initiative. Enjoy your lunch, Urza. Hey. Leaving Urza with her meal, I headed for Yuria's room. Loud noises were coming from the door. Knock knock. I knocked on Yuria's door. Yuria, mind if I come in? No, be my guest. When I opened the door, a familiar stairway met my eyes. It's the same set of stairs that I took when I first visited Yuria's atelier. The room I gave to Yuria didn't have any stairs, nor did it have space for them. It was structurally impossible for stairs to be there. Perhaps this is one of the effects of psychoment, as Yuria calls it. I walked down the stairs, thankfully with no teddy bears aggressively jumping at me this time. The corridor is decorated with ribbons that vividly show off Yuria's tastes. I wonder if she adorned it herself, or ordered her teddy bears to do the job. I reached the hall at the end of the corridor. The space feels smaller than last time. It's rather compact, even. 8 teddy bears stood around the workbench, busily engaging in craft, as sparks flew off. You're here, detective. One of the teddy bears turns around to greet me. I don't remember giving you permission to modify the office building at your will. I still have many more months of rent to pay for the leased space. Don't worry, Detective Moses. I can revert it any time. You mean to tell me the space is part of your psychoment? Yes, it's my own atelier. I could freely control the teddy bears according to my will here. So, did you find a way to get back into your original body? No, it seems to be sealed tight. There's still too little we know about psychoment. Finding a way back to my old body is one of the things that we'll have to figure out. Yuria casually spoke as if it didn't matter too much to her. What will happen if something goes wrong with your original body? If my vital functions ceased and my brain stopped, I would probably die. My speculation is that psychoment requires the user's mind to exist for it to work, but it's not like I can try crushing my own body to test, is my hypothesis. How do you handle having meals with that body? I should be alright as long as my body out there is put on life support machine. This teddy bear can be fine without eating anything. It's my brain that requires nutrition, rather. Yuria shook her head. I'm more concerned about this black box. I've never seen this type of material. That person from Tai Young Produce Co. mentioned L Corp. I'm thinking it might have something to do with its singularity. Are you implying that a wing's singularity has been leaked? Well, it collapsed anyhow. Remnants of a singularity. There have been a few cases of a singularity coming off patent after the wing holding it breaks. Or someone could have scavenged one of the sealed branches, or got all the way into the headquarters, perhaps. Yuria, I'm more interested in learning about the functions and working principles of that box. I can tell you what it does. The box sucks in people's psyche, or their distortions to be exact. Is this some kind of psychoment? Basically, from what I've seen at least. It could be a psychoment belonging to someone, or one formed from artificially created minds and emotions. Creating minds and emotions, an action to be considered taboo. Well, ultimately, to have to learn more about the distortion and what you call psychoment. Yuria naturally climbed onto my shoulder. That's why you're going on a long trip, right? Speaking of, what should we do with your body when we leave? That's an issue I'm still pondering over. I've been tinkering with a few ideas, but for now we should focus on chasing the distortions. We already have a few requests waiting to be read. Yuria held her arm to point at the exit. This teddy bear's growing more brazen with each passing day. Sure, let us have a look. I left the room to find a visitor in our office. The atmosphere was ominous, Urza sitting on the sofa and facing the guest, looking as anxious as she can be. I can see his back from here, a bright yellow jacket embroidered with a black hornet. A couple of weapons lay next to him. Having the gall to wear such a blindly obtrusive color means that he has much confidence in his skills. Is it a member of a syndicate? Or a fixer? The guest noticed my presence and turned his head to look at me, then a deep voice came from his mouth. A pleasure to meet you, Dr. Moses. Urza, who is this person? He doesn't appear to be a client looking to give us a request. I adjusted the positioning of my pipe slightly. Detective, this is... Urza floundered. Let me introduce myself. The man got up from his chair and turned to me, resuming his speech. I am Vespa. Vespa Crabro. Fixer working under the direct command of N-Corp, and a taboo hunter. Taboo. Damn it. This reminds me that sly little bear Yuria recorded us the first time we met her. Now she was doing her best to act like a lifeless plushie on my shoulder. I've received reports that Moses' office should know about a certain person who violated the taboo of District 14. And who could that taboo-breaking idiot be? I asked, puffing away on my pipe. Yuria, of Yuria Atelier. That's the name of the violator. He answered, fiddling with the hilt of his sword wrapping in yellow cloth. Have you seen her? No. Several of the people on the street have testified that you saw you enter Yuria Atelier. Do you have concrete evidence? Oh, right, recording footage was forbidden in District 14, wasn't it? Vesper closed his eyes for a moment. He seemed to be absorbed in thought. He soon opened his eyes and spoke to me. Thank you for your cooperation. If you ever happen to witness Yuria, please mail me at this address. He handed me his business card. I will, Mr. Vesper. Urza, our guest is leaving. Hey, detective. Urza rose from her soft seat to open the office door for our departing guest. As Vesper walked past me, he whispered into my ear. That's quite a cute plush toy on your shoulder. Why, thank you. Vesper briefly stopped at the entrance and gave us a nod before closing the door. Urza, start packing up. Now. I calmly spoke. Chapter 16. Dugui Combat Office. An ordinary hotel in District 14. I checked in to the most average room with 2 beds I could ask for. Urza and I sat on one bed. Yuria's old body lay on the other, and next to me is Yuria in her plush doll body. Isn't it way too humid in here? My cotton's gonna get moldy. You sly teddy bear. Perhaps she knowingly broke the taboo as a means to keep us hostage. I'd bonk her on the head if it could hurt her. We left our office to escape the taboo hunter's eyes. He most certainly noticed that we were hiding something as soon as he met us. Those kind of fixers simply can't be avoided. Although, how come they immediately send a fixer that appears to be at least a grade 2 after us? It's not common for a wing to dispatch a fixer under its command to deal with something as trivial as filming a fight in the back streets. Yuria, do you happen to have a previous track record of breaking taboos? ... Well, Yuria, I guess this is the end of our relationship. Junior, it was fun while it lasted. Ladies, like it or not, we're all in the same boat already. Tell me why the two of us should risk our lives to protect you. Our own come before investigating distortions or psychomet, and what's chasing us right now is neither. We're not running a combat-oriented office. It's all for psychomet, of course. I've rewatched the videos of you using the smoke pipe and the giant emerging from that black box countless times. That's how I could make my theoretical advancements in our research. What? Don't tell me the glasses we wore there were actually... Detective, I never asked her to put any kind of recording function in the glasses. Urza waved her hands and shook her head. That cheeky little bear. I put my hand to my forehead. You mean everything that happened in Tae Young Produce Co. that day was recorded? Yes, until the disgusting river took the glasses off your faces, that is. Why didn't you tell me? I was scared you'd kick me out. You would have at least stopped me if you knew. But if I didn't make any record of Psychoman or the distortions, this research wouldn't go anywhere. That's why I was quiet about it. Yes, that's fine and all, but Yuria... I put my hand on the teddy bear's head and pet it. Remember, if you hide details that could put us in more peril one more time, then I'll part company with you for real. Understood, Detective Moses. Yes, that's a good girl. Alright, Urza. Tell me your first impressions of Vespa. Urza has a keen sense when it comes to combat, since she enjoys fighting. She's excellent at discerning a strong opponent from a weak one. Can't beat him. Urza declared that outright. Urza is honest when she says there's no match for someone. That person reeked of blood. He's probably fought more battles than I can count. He might be stronger than Heejun Sanbei too. Which means he's definitely grade 2 or above. One who is an expert in murder, at that. Detective Moses, can't you beat him with your psychomint? Your smoking pipe could take down that gigantic skeleton the other day. This kid seems to be mistaking me with the red mist. Yuria, confronting humans is a different issue. There's a fundamental contrast between a distortion filled with naught but murderous intent, and a person who is trained in the art of killing. A person like Vespa, who has overcome numerous life and death situations, won't give me any time to breathe into my smoking pipe. He'd slice my arm off or break it before I could take a single peep. What if Urza Sanbei earned you some time like you did the last time? Junior, I'm not sure I can stall that guy at all. Silence fills the room. Only the sound of the ventilator fan disturbs the stillness. We can't fight the Hornet head-on, we'll have to outsmart him. The best way would be to avoid having to fight him altogether. The first thing I can think of is fleeing District 14, Yuria suggested, crossing her arms. A simple idea, but sadly not foolproof. There's 2 weeks of time until we can take the warp train with the tickets we received. The Taboot hunters could catch up with us easily if we drove along this road. Detective, I got one. Urza raises her hand and waves it. Go ahead. Maybe we should hire a super duper strong fixer to fight for us. Yeah, hopefully they'll buy us enough time for a run. Do you have any personal connection with grade 1 or 2 fixers who specialize in combat, Urza? No. I'm doubtful they'll take our request in the first place. Even if there were any, opposing a fixer who directly belongs to a wing essentially means opposing that wing. Detective, that means he'll stop bothering us once we meet up with Heejun Sanbei in District 11, right? It'd certainly be less trouble for us if we can pass the buck in him. We just need to hold out for 2 weeks. I need to find someone who can buy us that much time. Urza, do you have the most recent issue of the monthly Fixer Office catalog? Of course I do. Urza rummaged her pockets and handed over the paper book she found. I skimmed through the catalog densely packed with advertisements and promotional phases for all sorts of offices, carefully scanning the section for combat-oriented ones. There's one useful-looking office that's not too far from here. Dangui Combat Office, a grade 2 fixer, unaffiliated with any association. 17 members, operates 24 hours a day, open year-round. Normally, it's extremely risky to use an office with no assurance from an association. It could be linked to dangerous syndicates. But in times like this, it's a perfect pawn for us. They won't ask what's going on. All they ask is for money. Urza, I'll go outside for a bit. Okie dokie, I'll get my gear. No, I want you to stay here and keep Yuria's body safe. But Detective, it's dangerous to go alone. And it's late evening too. Don't worry, Urza. You're very reliable to have around, and I'd love to take you with me if I could, but I'm leaving you here so you can keep Yuria safe. I'm counting on you. Okay, Urza answered, hanging her head. I'll be back as soon as I sign the contract. Yuria hopped on to my shoulder, and I left the hotel room. An evening street lit by the setting sun. Achromantic. Distorted people are on their way home from work, their heads turned downwards. The scenery is the same as ever. People stroll the streets bearing distortions that look similar to one another, but not quite the same. I reckon these scenes will forever remain this way. A crude sign that reads Dao Gui Combat Office is hanging outside a 2-story building. The light on the sign was flickering, suggests that it may have endured many years. The building seems even more dilapidated than our humble office. I took the stairs to the second floor. When I opened the door, I was greeted with the sound of a chime and a fusty stench. Guys, we got company! Followed by someone's loud voice. People in the office extinguished the cigarettes in their hands and started bustling about the organizing space. Here, please take a seat, ma'am. A person who appears to be a desk jobber led me to a seat. There's not a single room separated with walls in this office space. That appears to be around 20 pyong in the area. The floor was a plain surface of grey cement, not covered in any flooring at all. I parked myself on the seat and took my smoking pipe out of my pockets. Is this really a grade 2 office? Where do all of their earnings go if none of that money is being spent on the office interior? Doesn't look like someone who'd usually come to a place like ours. Got someone you want to see dead? The man sitting on a sofa with a haughty posture talked to me, scratching his head. This sunglasses wearing person seemed to be the boss of the office. I'm here to give you a request. Well, you do look like you're wealthy enough to afford our services, and you seem pretty old too. I wonder what your business coming all the way to our office. Let me guess, you got a problem with inheriting your fortune to your kids or something. As the boss started bursting out laughing, the office crew laughed along. Talk about an utter lack of dignity. What do you think we are? Some kind of shabby local office made out of hicks? We've been through hell and high water. Say, let me have a look at your business card if you got one. I took out my card and handed it to him. He briefly lifts the glasses to scan through my card. His two eye sockets are empty. Distortion, not a severe one though. Moses' office. Mysterious and unsolved cases, 7 association affiliate, some weird shtick you're up to. He put a serious look on his face. He stared at the floor for a moment before looking back at me. Name's Zhang Lei. I'm the rep of this office. He gave me his business card. Zhang Lei, representative of the Du Gui office, grade 2 fixer, is written in rough handwriting as a note of his current status. Let's get straight to the point. What does a brainy office want with us? I want you to protect my office for 2 weeks. I'll pay you as much as you want. Made an enemy out of someone, eh? Happens pretty often, don't it? The fixers in the office collectively nod. So, how many escorts do you want? Every fixer in your office. Must have made one huge fest, haven't you? Once again, you'll get enough payment to compensate. Who are we facing? I remained silent. You smoke? Oh, I love smoking. Let's take a moment to talk alone on the rooftop. Smoking a cigarette, Zhang Lei looked up to the sky. A forest of buildings are surrounding the landscape. Night fell on the streets already. So, your job is to solve weird and odd incidents? I nodded with my smoking pipe. You see, I have a kid. Problem is, she shut herself in a room and just won't leave. You're giving me a request now? People's gotta help each other out, man. Maybe it's just my thick head, but something beyond my comprehension is going on in my house. If you can solve this problem, I'll guarantee you'll have my whole office keeping you safe. Can I get a discount on the request fee then? Come on. Aren't we doing you a huge favor but not asking who you're up against? Now you're just being greedy. I laughed with him. Yeah, right. This is a much better negotiator than I am. Can you offer an escort right now in that case? The location and room is 1306 in the Business Hotel on Chili Street. A few useful guys will be on their way to that address right now. Good. I'll hear more about the strange happenings in your house as we head to your home. Well, that's a deal then, yeah? I nodded and shook hands with Zhang Lei. Tobacco smoke billowed from the roof for a good while. Chapter 17. Aquarium. Zhang Lei led the way to his house. It's not too uncommon for a child to lock themselves in their room these days. The cause must be a trauma of some kind. This problem is highly likely to be related to the distortion, in that case. Besides, weird noises are coming from my daughter's room, every night. Maybe you should have some more respect for a kid's privacy? It's nothing of that sort, ma'am. I've killed a whole lot of people in my life. I know the sounds of tearing flesh and breaking bones all too well. It's that gruesome and morbid noise. Something that shouldn't be heard from a kid's room. Seeping out along with my daughter's screams. I'm sure you've tried forcefully opening the door, am I correct? Sure I have, but whenever I grab the doorknob or try to break the whole door, it always pushes me away, and the noises would get louder and more bruising the harder I try to open the door. I'm in a rough spot where I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. How old is your child? How long has it been since she's locked herself in? 17. She's been in there for almost 8 months now. College entrance must be a concern as well if she's stuck in there instead of studying for it at school. You see, my daughter Faye is attending a virtual school. She's never missed a class until now, and her grades were fine the last I checked. Virtual schooling. Students take lessons in a virtual space. It's a type of school preferred by parents who value the safety of their kids, since they don't have to pass potentially dangerous alleyways to get to school. An advantage shared by boarding schools. A parent like him who engages in violent work would especially pay more attention to their child's well-being. And there's another one thing my brain just can't understand. What would that be? Water's leaking through the door. I don't know if it's blood or seawater, but Some kind of liquid is flowing out bit by bit. I put my hand on my forehead and whiffed my pipe. A distortion that has already materialized. That makes a lot trickier to resolve. I'll have to see for myself how severe it is. Zhang Lei's house was located in the residential area of the back streets. It's one of the safest places outside of the nest. A complex of 30-story apartments lined up the packs like cigarettes. It's akin to a cage for chickens. I followed Zhang Lei into an elevator. The lift slowly rises, creaking and rattling. His house is on the 18th floor. As the elevator door opened, lamps in the hallway detected our presence and flickered on. Zhang Lei took a key out of his pocket to open the door to unit 1807. Creak. The door opens with a sharp, grating sound, and an unlit hall greets us. You live alone? Ha ha ha. Everyone has their own stories, ma'am. Zhang Lei forced a bit of laughter. Kia! A shrill shriek strikes my ears immediately. Afterwards, Zhang Lei let out a sigh. That's the sound I was talking about. Your daughter's name was Faye, was it? Mm-hmm. I walked to the room where the screen came from. What I was faced with was a giant aquarium in the red. The door had disappeared. The room was full of red water about to overflow. Colorful aquatic plants lined the interior, gleaming in the light shining from above, as though we were in a hole in the ceiling leading to the sky. And the silhouette of something massive is slowly drifting afar. Check this out. Red water leaking from the door, just like I told you. It seems Zhang Lei can't see what's in this room. That means the materialization is not yet complete. We're both in luck. This seems to be a case of a phenomenon I'm an expert on. That's so. I'm counting on your help, Doc. Zhang Lei bowed low to me. I have one thing I need to ask of you. I need you to trust me no matter what I do on here on out. What's about to happen won't be anything normal. He nodded. Standing before the room, I took a deep breath. This would get my mind as wet as a drowned rat. I held my smoking pipe in my mouth. This red water is a manifestation of depression. I let out a white breath, which turned into a cloudy mist that shrouded me. I remember taking a similar request before. If I went into that room unprepared, I would drown in the melancholy of Faye. The white veil surrounding me protects me from such mental corrosion. Being soaked in someone's sadness is a dysphoric experience, comparable to no other. I touched the barrier of water. Faye, I'm going in. I took a step into the room, my ears submerged along with the rest of my body, cutting me off from all external sounds. The inside is closer to a lake than a sea. It's filled with fresh water, not seawater. The water isn't salty. This child's sadness isn't the briny, tear-jerking kind. You can talk now, Yuria. Yuria jumped out of my coat pocket. I put her on my shoulder. Whew! That was suffocating. Because a taboo hunter is after us, I forbade Yuria from speaking in most occasions. Him or others could be eavesdropping on us at any moment. This space, it's quite similar to your workshop, isn't it? It certainly is. It's much bigger on the inside, too. There might be something guarding this place, like the muscle bears in my altar. You don't have Urza Sonbei to protect you this time, so you better be careful. It's been quite a long while since I worked on a case without Urza's help. Now that I think about it, if it weren't for her, I would be long dead before I could solve half of these cases I've dealt with. I'm guessing she got bored and fell asleep alone in the hotel room by now. This place is so eerie, yet beautiful. Yeah, we should practice extra caution with beautiful distortions. The sound of laughter echoes from somewhere. I exhaled a red breath. The pipe assumed the form of a sharp crimson blade. Detective, I just heard a sound coming from over there. Faint laughter underwater. Yuria pointed to the right. When a sound is heard in a mysterious place, should I approach the source or move away? It is a problem I still don't have a definitive answer for, even after doing my jobs for so long. I'll have to trust my intuition in the end. I walked toward where the sound came from. Yuria, is there anything you can do to assist me in that body? Afraid not. Puh, you bold-faced little plushie. You just cursed at me in your mind, didn't you? While I can't assist you directly, I can provide you with a bunch of prototypes I brought. I tried making ribbons for each color. If you have a function you'd like to use, just tell me and I'll tie up your pipe with the right ribbon. What kind of functions can I expect? Well, there's quite a diverse range of functions, and they mostly depend on your emotions, so I can't give you the details there. You could just ask me for the feeling you need right away. I'll look forward to it. Ask for the feelings I want. I'm not sure if that's the right attitude for a technician to have. How do you usually solve cases like this, Detective Moses? I should figure out the cause. After all, there is a reason for everything. I trace along clues one by one, such as why this room is full of water, why the color is red, why isn't it salt water, until I can identify what the root of the distortion. Does this count as a severe case of a distortion? Maybe. Every person is different. Thus, every person's distortion is different. I cannot begin to fathom the depth of the trench that is the human mind. Therefore, it's difficult to judge a distortion's nature hastily. I'll have to knock on their minds and confront them myself to find out. Which is frankly an exceedingly tiring work. Repeating such thoughts, I kept walking forward before I finally reached the culprit behind the laughter. It's mermaids, as I expected. Chapter 18. A Carp and Mermaids. They're mermaids with the body of koi. The faces of humans onto the bodies of colored carp. Their long hair flutters. That big dumb fish was singing again. It's like she can't take a hint at all. Don't you think it's lame how she writes cringy lyrics to sing with that voice? I would have been a much better singer if I was born that size. Don't you think so? Three mermaids are sitting around, loudly chatting with each other. Their eye sockets are empty, just like Zhang Lei's. Perhaps there's a linkage to be found between them. Three merfolk appear to be communicating with their voices alone, unable to see each other. One of the striking features of merfolk is the power in their voice. Every merperson I've seen in my job possessed an ability related to the voice. One type or another. And the ability of these merfolk here seem rather straightforward. Their words, they loudly chatter, become red thorns as they escape their mouths. The thorns are then shot towards somewhere. Sometime later, a sound could be heard from a distance. Mind if I join in on your conversation? Someone is singing out there, I reckon. Who are you? Excuse me, but we weren't talking to you? Geez, what's a stranger doing in listening on us? You were talking and laughing so loudly, we couldn't help but hear it. Crossing her arms, Yuria rebutted. It's still a rude thing to eavesdrop on others. We were just talking by ourselves. Mind your own business. Sheesh, what a scary world. We can't even talk in peace. I apologize. I didn't intend to overhear it. Please understand that our ears had no choice other than to pick up the sound traveling through water. We need to know what's going on in this place, Yuri added. Did you come from above? One of the mermaids asked. We did come from outside, although we weren't from the above. I had a feeling you weren't from around here. Here's a word of advice. There's a few rules you should follow here. And what would those be? First, you gotta pluck your eyes out. That's right, we don't see, we only hear and talk. Seeing is the most dangerous thing you can do here. The place looks rather beautiful, though? Yuria asks. That's precisely why. It's so dazzling and beautiful, it could kill you. So we gouged each other's eyes out. How many mermaids like you are there here? I don't know. I think I heard voices of about 100 of them today. There's still a bunch of surviving friends out there. Surviving from what, exactly? From that huge monster, obviously. What else could it be? Anyway, we let you hear too much of our voices. You know nothing is free in this world, right? What do you want us to yield? I wouldn't mind compensating you for the things you told me. Your voice. Share your voices to us. You said this is your first time here, so we'll be conscientious and only take a small portion from you two. You won't be able to speak. Ugh. Detective Moses, they're starting to freak me out. Yuria hid behind me. I paused for a moment to think. I'll have to follow their rules for a while. You can take my voice, including this kid's share. Detective Moses! Yuria, trust me. Well, fine. The three mermaids took turns to kiss me. Each time their lips touched mine, it felt as though something was being pulled from my throat. Hey, I didn't expect your voices to taste this good. They say a voice gains a savory taste as it ages. That's so true. Mermaids babbled on with much livelier and louder voices. My voice has only half as much volume as before. It feels rather raspy as well. Detective Moses, are you alright? Yuria asked worriedly. Yeah. Let me tell you one more thing. You better not speak too much here. Not all mermaids will take voices gently like we do. You only have so much voice to spare. Then again, our existence would be pointless if we didn't talk. No? That's why we talk non-stop and look for more voices. Where can we find the giant fish you were talking about? It's where the screams are coming from. And the place that shines so brightly, it's headache inducing. She's got a stupidly massive voice pocket. It just never runs out no matter how much she sings. Once again, red worms spewed from her mouth to become thorns that fly somewhere. Moments later, a scream is heard. Thank you. Leaving behind the mermaids, I headed for the direction where the screams came from. They still noisily chatter, as if they want to be heard. The large monster they mentioned, and the source of the screams must be Faye. It would appear that Faye's own distortion is attacking her. Yuria, is it possible for your teddy bears to attack you? Sure, it's possible. There's no way I'd make such an order, though. I can control the teddy bears like they're my hands and feet. You could slap your own cheek if you bothered to. See what I mean? This could possibly be a form of self-harm. 17-year-old, a student, virtual school, red water, aquarium, freshwater, carp, mermaids, song, voice, thorns, self-harm. I slowly enumerate the clues and make possible connections. Discord with someone at school, delicacy of a child at puberty, desire for a beautiful voice, urge to sing, self-loathing, attempted suicide, severed relationship. There's still so much leeway for guessing. This pool of red water was created from someone's blood, bled from a wounded heart, most likely. Stagnant water means melancholy. The gloom is typically distorted in the form of water. Sadness full of sorrow manifests as seawater, usually with deep blue. The subject often burrows deep into their own heart, settling the ocean's depths. On the other hand, blood red water is a disruptive kind. This place can be compared to an aquarium or a shallow pond. A body of stagnant water glowing in bright powder pink that is neither dark nor deep. An aquarium of depression where destructive impulses subtly rests. Repeating such thoughts in my mind, I slowly walk forward, the epicenter of the sounds. Whenever the screams paused, I spoke with blind mermaids passing by. With every mermaid talking about screams, I gain more information about the source of its location. As I get closer to the sounds, more red, more thorns quickly fly past me. I turn around to deflect the ones flying to my face with my sword as I advance. Not long after, I encountered a giant carp emitting a bright pink glow. I let out a sigh of relief, finding the host of the distortion in the expansive space it has created after the battle. The carp radiated such a brilliant light. It was akin to a gemstone. Myriads of red thorns are lodged in its body. The colossal carp lets out a painful scream. Blood is gushing out from the wound. The carp sings, crying. A dreadful distortion created by herself. Dead mermaids litter the floor below the carp, mermaids whose eyes are lured by the light. When the mermaids approach the carp, long arms emerge from its mouth and pull in for a kiss. Those hands then gouge the mermaid's eyes out, bleeding from the emptied eye sockets. The mermaid writhes and sinks to the bottom, unable to scream. Yuria and I were watching the scene with bated breath. All of a sudden, a red thorn grazed past my cheek and nailed itself in the carp. The white veil enfolding us pops. We're slowly doused in red misery. Without a shroud to protect the mind, the carp's reddish light directly enters my eyes. My mind is slipping. I tried to block the light with my palm. Yuria, hand me a ribbon with a feeling of enveloping something. Purple would be good. I could hardly speak at this point. My voice was small and coarse. Here! I wrapped the ribbon Yuria gave around the smoking pipe, and I exhaled a deep, violet breath. Dark smoke billowed from the pipe, surrounded by the carp. Holding it in place and restraining the light it emitted, I approached the carp and removed the thorns stuck in its body, one by one. The carp shrilled each time a thorn was pulled. The piercing shrieks invoked visions of face past in my head. You just wanted to sing. I pull a thorn out. You were always alone at home. I pull a thorn out. You became friends with fellow students who enjoyed your songs. I pull the thorn. You were happy that your friends would listen to the songs you wrote. I pull out a thorn. But those friends changed as time passed. I pulled out a thorn. Your friends only liked you for your pretty voice. I pulled out a thorn. They were only interested in your voice, not the songs you made. I pulled out a thorn. You began to think that your friends were jealous of you for that reason. You thought that you were being hated. I pulled out a thorn. You were upset. You started hating your friends. I pulled out a thorn. That's why, Faye, You pushed away your friends, one-sidedly. Pull out a thorn. You became all alone. Pull out a thorn. They, the mermaids that are inflicting pain upon you, are illusions you created. I pull out a thorn. You created a space to feel hurt and vent your anger. I pull out a thorn. Maybe the malice your friends bear is an illusion as well. You'll never know until you have a heart to heart with them. I pull out a thorn. Doubt and anger fostered by presumptions you make on your own will only harm you. I continue to pluck out the thorns. My ears are bleeding. My consciousness is barely holding up. She can barely be categorized as a type who experience rejection from others. They create a space for themselves and swallow their angers inside. Without a vent to dissipate the rage, the emotion will eat away at them. The last remaining thought is pulled out. You'll face many hardships similar to this in the future. Please don't hurt yourself because of that. We need to have the courage to check the true feelings of others and ourselves. The process will surely be uncomfortable and painful, just like now. Feel free to contact me whenever you have trouble with it. We'll ponder on the matter together. Bloody water poured out of Faye's room. Faye and I were swept along by the flood and landed in the living room. Zanglei rushed to Faye and hugged her. That's another case solved. There's still a few scales left on Faye's face, but this is a good enough outcome. Doc, I don't know how to express my thanks to you. Zanglei kept bowing to me to show his gratitude. Pay more attention to your child. I know your job keeps you busy, but you neglected her too much. Yeah, I really should. Thanks again, Doc. Knock, knock, knock. Someone bangs the door. It's 2 in the morning right now. I have a bad feeling about this. Zanglei pulled a Padgio from his dimensional glove. Doc, stay here for a moment. He headed to the entrance. I carried Faye on my back and returned to her room. The front door was knocked out of the frame and flown into the house with a loud noise. Is a person named Moses here? Vespa Crabro. That's his voice. Well, who are you? Zanglei asked back in an intimidating tone. Vespa Crabro, associate fixer of N-Corp, and a taboo hunter. Please spare me a moment. I have business to handle here. Let me guess. Someone broke the taboo? Correct. Click, clack. Vespa's shoes audibly sound on the floor. Hey, why don't you take your shoes off at least? Click, clack. I can hear him open each of the door of the house. You ain't listening for shit, huh? Vespa was almost at the door to Faye's room. The floor is soaked with water, or is this blood? Doc, run! A yellow blade flashed before my eyes. Zanglei's Padgio blocked Vespa's sword. The sharp noise echoed through the house. Zanglei of Dalgo office. I've read a report on you in the past. Well, ain't that an honor? Dr. Moses, please take good care of my daughter. I gave him a nod. Vespa adjusted his glasses and scowled at me. The sound of swords clashing against each other blared from the house for a while. Noises of furniture breaking down, clamor of tussles and rough shouts. I hurriedly went down to the apartment, carrying Faye on my back. I couldn't afford to wait for an elevator, so we took the stairs. The noise of them fighting could still be faintly heard as I descend. We reached the ground floor. Something dropped from above with a heavy thud, causing the concrete floor to cave in. I laid Faye on the ground. The dark shape rose from the ground as it came under the streetlight. Vespa's yellow clothing was smeared with blood, and the blood wasn't his. He's holding something in his hand. He then tossed it at us. It's Zanglei's head. I placed my smoking pipe in my mouth and let out a pale blue breath. Red gushed out. Before I could finish breathing, my right arm fell to the ground along with the pipe. Vespa was already cleaning the blood on the yellow blade of his sword. I couldn't even see him draw it from the sheath. I've collected testimonies from 50 people. This record is enough justification for me to execute you in District 14, Moses. He put the yellow Huando back in its sheath and slowly approached me. Any last words? Vespa spoke in a deep voice, adjusting his glasses. Chapter 19. The Hunter. I'm more interested in hearing what you have to say. You want to take my life? Blood is flowing out of my severed right arm. All I can do at this point is run my mouth. Dr. Moses, I do not enjoy killing people. I do not wish to stain my body with blood that I do not need to see. So, what is it that you want? First and foremost, the most important task, retrieving the original footage that was recorded. Vesper shook his head to check his watch for a moment, then resumed his speech. Second, moving you, Urza, and Yuria, the three people who broke the taboo, to N-Corp. Apparently, Yuria was not the only one guilty of violating the taboo. You don't immediately kill people who break the taboo? How considerate. Well, that's how things are. But no one who's been sent to N-Corp for infringing the taboo has ever returned, to my knowledge. Vesper glared at me and readjusted his glasses. Dr. Moses, make no mistake, I could decapitate you right now and store your head in a preservation cube. Then why aren't you doing so? Vesper has something he needs to coax out of me, something he can get from me. Knowledge about the distortion? It doesn't take much sense for a taboo hunter to inquire about the distortion. Vesper's objective is to bring Urza, Yuria, and I to his employer. He seems to have located me easily, and he might be aware of Urza's location as well. Perhaps he already took care of her. However, he would have no need to hesitate if I were the only one remaining. Now I get it. Finding Urza and I should be easy for him. But Yuria? Even if he found Urza and Yuria in the room, he'd only have an unconscious body on his hands. It would be difficult to imagine via common knowledge that her consciousness mind has been transferred to this small teddy bear of all things. Not a replacement body, or a conceivable alternative. And Vesper is pressed for time right now. If he's had enough time to spare, he would have severed my head like he threatened to do so just now, and searched my brain for the relevant information. This shows that he has no time to do that. This gives me a leeway for a negotiation. He needs to know something only a consciousness Yuria knows. He's yet to find the original recording. Only Yuria knows where they are. They'd be inside Yuria's workshop in that case. I have time, and information, as my weapon. Looks like I'm the only conscious person who has the lead on the whereabouts of the original footage, and you're running short on time. ... Vesper furrowed his brow. It seems my time has turned again. What happened to Urza? Fine then. Let's show a little bit of honesty to each other. After I answer your question, you'll answer mine in return. I'll take it, and you still haven't given me an answer for my last question. I lost Miss Urza. She was a quick-witted one. I was quite relieved to hear the news. I still cannot fully trust him, however. It's my turn, Dr. Moses. Do you know where the original copy of the footage you recorded is? I know that the footage is in Yuria's atelier. At the same time, I don't know how to access her workshop. Yes, I know where the footage is. I don't know how to get there, though. Vesper raised his eyebrows. What did you do with Yuria's body? It's in my car, and I haven't laid a finger on it. I answered your question, so let me ask mine. Can you figure out how to access the location where the footage is? I can figure it out. I can simply ask Yuria about it. Even if I had no way of knowing, this is the question I am obliged to answer with a yes. If I said otherwise, my usefulness would expire to him. Vesper believes what I'm saying. The question is one asked by someone expecting to hear a truthful statement for every question. He's more honest than he seems. I've gained all the information I need from him. Vesper is likely to be telling the truth. That would mean Urza is alive, Yuria's body is fine. All I could do next is have faith in Urza. I can. What happens to us when we follow you to N-Corp? I'm afraid I don't know that. All I do is hunt down those who violate the taboo and send them to N-Corp. Vesper looked at his watch. Alright, I believe now we can make a deal. As you have pointed out, I have little time to spare. I will take you along with the original footage, Dr. Moses. I will forfeit the hunt for Urza and Yuria as for now. I would advise against attempting to bargain for more your information. Fine. Yuria, open the atelier for him. Yuria squirmed out of my coat pocket. Vesper quietly stares at us, showing no reaction to the moving teddy bear. Detective Moses. I told you, you should trust me. Understood. A door is needed to get to my atelier. We could use one in Mr. Zhang's house. Can you make some time to get back up the apartment? If we must, we'll go up as you ask. Your arm and this smoking pipe will be in my possession. You'll have to come with me, anyway. After I nodded, Vesper came to my side. He took out a stasis preservation cube from inside his coat pocket and stored my right arm in it. Putting the cube back, Vesper covered my shoulder with a dressing. He then put Faye on his shoulder, who was still lying on the ground unconscious. He bent his knees to lower his position and stretch an arm at us. Yuri and I watched Vesper's bizarre series of movements in silence. We have no time to take an elevator. Come over here. Do we really have to do this? Dr. Moses, I cannot waste a second. Disgusting. Vesper leapt to the 7th floor of the apartment with Faye and I in his embrace. He has tremendous muscular strength. He must have gained it through a multitude of augmentational procedures. I assume he partakes in ceaseless physical training as well. We were back at Zhang Lei's house in an instant. All the furniture in the house is now severely damaged or broken. Blade cuts were vividly showing on the walls. I could guess how fierce the battle was, despite its length. I merely acted in self-defense while executing my duty. I hope you don't have any hard feelings towards killing an acquaintance of yours, Dr. Moses. He's a dangerous kind. He switches his attitude in an instant and entices people, bringing in their guard down with honeyed words. Saying that he didn't do it because he wanted to, this man could have easily neutralized Sangley without killing him. In that case, Vesper is a pro when it comes to hunting people. He knows when to apply psychological pressure on his target, and when to loosen them up. Every action of his is calculated. Vesper gently put Faye and I on the floor. Yuria, open the workshop. Yuria climbed out of my pocket and touched one of the doors. The door vibrated briefly. Done. I want you to enter first. Vesper said, adjusting his glasses. It had to be an unfamiliar sight for him, but he doesn't appear phased at all. I pick up Yuria, who was standing in front of the door, and placed her on my shoulder. I opened the door to the now familiar staircase to her atelier. I slowly walked down the stairs. Vesper follows us from behind, keeping distance. After coming down the stairs, we're walking along the corridor leading to the hall. This is where the real battle starts. Yuria, the bears. Right as I whispered the words to Yuria, I rolled forward. All the bears in Yuria's atelier rushed out at once. Teddy bears armed with blades and their paws jumped at Vesper. There was a flash of yellow light. The heads of the bears dropped to the ground before they could even reach him. A large bear with an axe descends from the ceiling, aiming at Vesper. The bears split in half before touching the ground. While Vesper's sword was busy cutting the bears apart, I desperately ran toward the exit. Numerous bears gang up on Vesper. Every single one of them is sliced before they can touch him. Keep Vesper occupied is good enough for us, however. Yuria, you can't pump out an unlimited amount of bears, can you? Of course I can't. I'm about to faint from the dizziness. I'm squeezing my brain right now. Yuria struggled to speak, clinging to my shoulder. Dr. Moses, I am disappointed. Vesper's quiet mutter reached my ear. I arrived at the stairs leading to the outside and I told Vesper, you'll find the footage you're looking for at the end of the corridor. You'd best settle retrieving it. Vesper is surrounded by the legion of teddy bears. It's physically improbable that he'll come for us immediately in that state. I just need to take a few more steps up the stairs. I intend to keep my word. I am taking both you and the footage. Light flashed for a split second. I fell down on my face with a groan. A spear penetrated my left thigh and nailed itself to the floor. This is a tool for hunting humans. It's a harpoon, not an ordinary spear. Damn it. The hornet was embroidered on his clothes for a reason. Vesper unhurriedly approaches me, slicing up the bears around him. I tried to pull the harpoon out of my thigh, but it won't budge. I don't have the strength to remove this. Yuria tries to help me, but to no avail. Falling on the stairwell, I lift my head up. All I had to do was climb up those stairs. Vesper was now right behind me. The exit seems so far and faint now. I suppose taking your head was a better idea, after all. Vesper adjusted his glasses again. This will not happen again. So, this is how it ends. Hectopascal kick! 10 times the acceleration! Urza landed her foot on Vesper's chest with incredible force. Vesper was flung away at remarkable speed. Detective, are you okay? Urza was also covered in injuries. Just look at me and tell me if it looks okay. Urza Sanba! Junior! Yuria hopped excitingly. Urza responded with a wild smile. She must have been worried about Yuria because she couldn't protect her body from Vesper. But it's still too early to be relieved. Most foes would have been reduced to pieces of flesh and bone the moment they came in contact, with Urza's flying kick coming down from the height of a long stairway. However, Vesper was only knocked away by impact, the monster of a man. Urza, please get rid of this thing stuck in my thigh. Hey, detective, hold still for a bit. I gripped my teeth. The harpoon was removed from the ground once Urza gave it some force. Detective, can you get up on your own? Urza has no time to help me up. She has to face Vesper, who will come back for us in no time. Sanbei, I'll help Detective up with my bears. Okay, I'll leave it to you, Junior. Small teddy bears appeared and lifted me. I probably manifested from the last of Yuria's mental strength that she squeezed out. The bear carries us and speedily climbed the staircase. Urza, follow us right away. With a blast of sound, a yellow light sparks from the end of the corridor and dashes toward us. In the fraction of a second, Urza caught the yellow blade between her palms with a clapping motion. Excellent, Vesper remarked, shaking his rumpled hair with a vacant right hand. Detective, you should go first, Urza shouted. Urza, get up here as soon as you see a chance, I shouted back. Don't think I can do that. Sorry, Urza answered. Chapter 20. A Bloody Struggle. 'Cause I think I might win this if things go well. Clap. The edge of the sword in Vesper's left hand is facing toward Urza, and she's desperately keeping the blade from getting closer to her. Vesper strikes Urza's ribs with an unoccupied right hand. Pum! A noise echoes. The blow sends Urza flying to the wall. She then rebounds to deliver a kick to Vesper's head. Vesper's glasses are knocked off his face. He stumbled for a moment, but he soon regained balance. Urza wipes the blood on her mouth. You're talented in combat. A yellow light flashed, but you do not have the talent of killing people. Blood spilled from Urza's chest. She took out the Nestor workshop hammer and swung it downward, only to land on thin air. Damn it. If only I had my smoking pipe, I could have leveraged the situation in her favor somehow. I was halfway up the stairs. There's absolutely nothing I can do other than helplessly watch Urza. Sonbei, remember what we talked about the other day? Yuria shouted urgently. I know, Junior. Come to think of it, the mask that always used to cover Urza's face wasn't there this time. A yellow light flashed once again. The flashing light left a trail across Urza's waist. Whee! Sparks flew up with an ear-piercing screech of metal. Urza's left waist is padded with an object akin to a sheet of steel. Augmented armor, is it? I wonder why you haven't used it until now. This is my first time using it, so... ... Flashes of yellow light spark from Vesper's left arm. A piece of armor blooms wherever yellow light strikes. The blade leaves yellow trails as it slices through the armor, but it fails to leave a deep cut. Urza shrugs off Vesper's attacks and swiftly closes in on him. That's my Urza. Urza's psychomint is thoroughly protecting her. She drills a fist into Vesper's chest without hesitation. The sheer force of the punch produced a sound wave that resounded through the workshop. Vesper flinched with a cough. Urza gave him no rest from the flurry of her fists. Vesper is steadily being pushed into the corner, coughing up blood. This battle is under Urza's control now. She gives her opponent no room to brandish their sword. Urza knows well how to fight someone armed with a bladed weapon. But Vesper is just as persistent. He won't fall down or let go of his blade. Even though his face is already covered in blood, he won't lose his balance. Despite seeing Urza completely dominate the fight, I can't be at ease. I must reassess you. Vesper mutters something. Urza ignores his mumbling and continues to throw punches and kicks at him. Groin, left chest. Laryngeal prominence, right waist, left calf, solar plexus, left cheek, solar plexus, groin, rib, left thigh, groin again, left waist. Urza's fists strike every known weakness of the human body that could be fatal. Vesper groans, but he does not collapse. Yuri and I reached the top floor of the stairs and escaped the atelier. Outside of the door, we watched Urza's fight with bated breaths. Zin! A sharp, high-pitched sound was heard. Vesper is holding a harpoon in his right hand. The harpoon was lying on the floor behind Urza mere moments ago, and there was a hole in the armor covering Urza's left shoulder. Blood leaks from the injured shoulder, yet Urza does not step back. She continues to pummel Vesper with her right hand. Vesper held the harpoon short and stabbed it into Urza. Urza took quick steps to dodge to the side, but she couldn't outspeed the thrust. The harpoon penetrated deep into Urza's side, nonetheless. Urza moves forward, and she wrapped her right arm around Vesper's. Crick! This is the sound of bones breaking. Urza broke Vesper's arm and snapped it. Clink. The harpoon tumbles to the floor, however, Vesper's eyes have not gone lifeless. He stares into Urza without blinking even once. Those eyes are dangerous. Urza cannot finish this fight. She will die if this goes on. The fight needs to end right this instant. Urza, get up here, now! I shouted at Urza from the top of my lungs. She instantly backed off, kicking Vesper in the chest. Yes, detective! Urza rapidly sprints up the stairs. Vesper has his gaze fixed on her. Yuria, seal the workshop! I yelled, ready to shut the door. The harpoon is lifted in front of his eyes. Urza climbed the staircase in a matter of seconds. She's only one step away. A yellow light flashed before my eyes. It can't be anything other than his harpoon, coming at full speed towards Urza and me. Believing in Urza, I slammed the door shut with all my strength. Kwing! Vibration sent a tremor through the building for a while. I am unfortunately alive. The harpoon couldn't break through the atelier door. And Urza... Detective, what will it do with your arm and leg? Doesn't it hurt bad? She was checking on me first, even when she was badly injured herself. We all survived the hunter. I heaved a sigh. Looking around the living room, I was greeted by the fixer of Duogui office who was still alive, and Faye was at the center of them. There's many pieces that need picking up here. Chapter 21. Road Trip. It seems 5 fixers out of the 17 of Dao Gui office have survived. They're just as badly wounded as we are. Some have lost their arms, and most are drenched in blood. It's evident that Vesper's end goal wasn't senseless murder. He exerted the precise amount of violence that was needed to carry out his mission. He most likely withdrew from the hotel as soon as he secured Yuria's body. My father has passed away, Faye said. I suppose you're responsible for it, and it's also thanks to you that I could leave that room. Sorry about that. It was my father's choice to work in such a perilous business. True, our work is a risky one. Who is the current representative of Do Gui office? I'd like to settle up their charge for this request. As per the tradition of Dui Gui office, Miss Faye here will be inheriting the position as representative of the office. One of the fixers spoke. A hereditary office. A combat office with a hereditary system. This office values loyalty above all else, as I suspected. Moreover, the new leader is a student who hasn't reached adulthood yet. It's unfortunate, but it's as clear as day that this office will disband sooner or later. Well then, Faye of Dui Gui office, let me ask this straight. Are you going to hold us responsible for this? The room fell quiet. My contract with Zhang Lei was a verbal one. There's no documentation to prove that Zhang Lei died protecting us as part of his work. The worst case scenario would be her escalating the situation into a violent conflict as payback. We'd have to fight tooth and nail against people with equally tattered bodies. Our fate is in the hands of this young representative. Everyone, let's take time to heal up before we continue this conversation. I have a lot I'd like to hear from you. Faye suggested with a calm voice. She's a wise child. Ezra broke into Vesper's car and extracted Yuria's body. Her body was untouched, just as Vesper said. We returned to our office with it. Vesper was surprisingly gentle about combing through our vacant home. It seems, our office looked nearly identical to how it was when we left. Urza and I took an HP tablet and went to sleep. There was much we wanted to discuss, but we were on the verge of collapse, physically and mentally. We decided to save talk for the day after. Dui Gui office lunchtime. The 3 of us sat on a sofa. Faye modestly sits on the leather sofa where her father used to frequent. President Faye, may I explain our situation and stance first? Yes, go ahead. I made a deal with Zhang Lei, the previous representative of Don Gui office. The contract was to hire all fixers of the Dui Gui office for 2 weeks. I needed their help because we broke the taboo of District 14 and a taboo hunter began pursuing us. I agreed to pay as much as they demanded according to the rules of the office. However, we only vaguely discussed the payment and never decided on the exact sum. And I didn't disclose the identity of my pursuer to them. If I told them I was being chased by a taboo hunter, most would refuse to take the request. So Zhang Li gave me another condition. To solve the strange happening taking place in this house, I had informed him that I run an office that solves mysteries and unsolved cases, which likely led him to bring it up. And the peculiar occurrence in this house was related to you, President Faye. I followed along Zhang Lei to his house and saved you in my own way, thus fulfilling one of the conditions of our contract. Shortly after I solved the case, the taboo hunter came to the house to capture me, and Zhang Lei died in the process of defending me as part of the contract. This is the way things happened. You're telling the story in such a dry tone. I also risked my life to save yours, mind you. Even though there's no physical proof, I can say with certainty that I made a deal with him that involves lives and money. I know. It's not that I distrust you, I just hope to hear you express your condolences to my father. Yes, I personally feel quite grateful to Zhang Lei as well. Even after knowing that his opponent was a taboo hunter, he did not hesitate to brandish his weapon against him in order to protect me. Although, it would be fairer to say that he did it for your sake, Faye. And I heard from Urza that she managed to safely escape from the hotel thanks to the fixers of your office. My appreciation and condolences to Zhang Lei and all the other fixers of the office who passed away knows no bounds. Urza slowly nodded next to me. Yeah, your words hopefully comforted my father's spirit a little. Faye looked down for a short moment. The request our office has taken isn't over yet. We will protect the people of Moses' office for the remaining 13 days. Yes, boss. The fixers of the Dogui office answered in unison. I'm quite touched by their kind heart, but I must say it feels like a child playing boss more than anything. The office has already lost most of its strength. A cool-headed representative should nullify a baseless request like this and focus on reorganization. I know that my decision may seem silly to adults. You're probably thinking that it won't help us in the long run. But here's something my father once told me. Our office is bound together with loyalty, so I'd like to repay you for staking your life to rescue me. Besides, you promised to ponder on my troubles together, and you'll have to be alive for that, right? She got me there. This child may have a faint heart, but she is a person of will. Crane, please contact our sister offices. Tell them that Dai Gui office is requesting help. A fixer standing next to Faye nods. Thank you, President Faye. Our office is deeply indebted to you. I stood up and formally showed my gratitude. My father taught me what to do in the case this day arrived. From now on, I'll have to learn from the people here. Faye stared into space for a short while, immersed in thought. Let's settle up on the request fee for now. I'll set the amount based on the customs of the Du Gui office. She meticulously in her business dealings, at least. Urza, I'll leave this to you. I came to the rooftop, I fished out a cigarette from the pack within my left hand and held it in my mouth. I have to light it up as well. What a nuisance. Blowing out smoke, I thought about what lies ahead of us. Detective Moses, what will you do about your smoking pipe? That's what I'd like to ask. What will you do about your workshop? My atelier will be out of commission for a while. I've wrung out all my brain power, so I won't be able to reopen the atelier anytime soon. And conjuring up bears to work for me is another mental chore. Both of you and I have become useless. Actually, no. I can still see the distortion. I'll work like a dog once my atelier is back in business. Yuria spoke in a tiny voice. Detective, I got a huge discount. Urza came running with a delighted look. Looks like the negotiation was a success. I pulled another cigarette out of the pocket, and Urza deftly lights the cigarette in my mouth. Detective, where will we get a new arm for you? Oh, and what about the smoking pipe? You've come at the right time. We were talking about it just now. I'll have to get a new arm before we head to District 11. Urza, may I leave you to choose the right model of prosthetic for me? Yeah, you bet. I'll find one that suits you really nice, Detective. I'm taking it off for my real arm once I get it back from the pesky bee. The last time I saw my right arm, he stored it in a stasis preservation cube. Maybe that stupid hornet will starve to death if we keep him trapped in my atelier for long enough. Waiting it out is one way, sure. But a fixer at Vesper's level can take procedures that allow them to last long without food or water. We don't know what kind of augments Vesper has, which means we don't know when or if he'll actually die of starvation. Tell me, how will Vesper rampaging in your workshop affect you? It'll take some time to restore the atelier, first and foremost. And by some time, I mean a considerable amount of it. I'll be dead weight for a good while. At least it's a relief to know your body and mind will be alright. I'll use my brain to work out how we'll deal with Vesper, so you can at least rest yours. And Urza, how did you manage to manifest your psychomet? Urza is wearing her mask now. Her distortion has become visible again. I bit a new cigarette in my mouth. I miss my pipe. I consulted with my junior here about it. Actually, I was thinking maybe I could get stronger if I learned to use psychomet, so she taught me the knack of it. Yuria, I don't believe a knack alone is sufficient to manifest the psychomet. I gave her a pendant in addition to that. Another prototype of mine. I watched the footage of Urza Sanbei fighting the skeletons in the Tai Young Produce Co. over and over again, and carved a pendant that I thought would be compatible with her. The pendant I made is a catalyst for manifesting psychomet. It also helps the shape of psychomet according to the carved mental image. That will be quite useful in the future. Carving one is a time-consuming process that I need my atelier to even begin, though. I could become stronger thanks to you, Junior. Both of our problems came down to Vespa being trapped inside the atelier. I need my smoking pipe back, and Yuria needs her workspace back to fully utilize her capabilities. Nothing has really changed. I need to meet up with Han Hee-jun in District 11 and dump this beehive on him. What should we do with your body, Yuria? Oh, about that. When I explained her situation to Faye, she said that she'll take care of the body until we get back. She's being too nice. Perhaps she wishes to ensure that her father's life was not lost in vain by providing safety and comfort to the people he died to protect. In any case, I'm in no position to refuse the hospitality. I took the cigarette out of my mouth and ground it into the ashtray. It's time to start preparing for the trip. A funeral for Zhang Lei and his deceased subordinates was held for 3 days. The funeral was conducted according to the traditions of the East, Zhang's region of origin. Faye remained in the funeral parlor from start to finish of the ceremony. Looking at the portrait of Zhang Lei smiling at the camera, I couldn't help but be reminded of a photographer I met some time ago. I had to accompany Urza on her shopping tour to the workshops for some time. The fixers of the Dao Gui office and its sister offices escorted us throughout the leave, as though we were noblewomen. In fact, the escort didn't stop when we were back inside. They stood guard vigilantly around our office and made sure no intruder could dare approach us or harm. I spent the rest of my time talking with Faye about the distortion and what happened to her and how she should live out her life hereafter. The time passed steadily. 30 minutes until the warp train departs. I puffed my cigarette in the smoking lounge. Warp trains, they always reach their destination in the blink of an eye. Urza waves at me from the platform, carrying her dimensional bag over her shoulder. She must be thrilled about this. I put Yuri in my coat pocket. I made sure to tell her to act like a doll for a good while. Faye and the fixers of the Dewey Gui office came to see us off. Urza and I sat in our seats of the train. We're finally leaving. We faced so many vicissitudes up until the departure, alas. A trip. I'm so excited for it. Urza, what awaits us there might be even more intense than the things we've gone through recently. And food, too. I've only seen the food of the Southern District in pictures, so I've always wanted to try it myself. Yeah, let's help ourselves to a fair bit when we get there. Oh yeah. I closed my eyes. And when I opened my eyes, we were already at our destination. The warp station in District 11, where the nest of K-Corp is located. Where Han Hee-jun is, and where that person is. Chapter 22. Part 1's Epilogue, and Part 2's Prologue. Greetings, Dr. Moses. You've come at last. A familiar pair of arrogant eyeballs await me right outside the warp terminal. The way he speaks infuriates me even more. At last, he says, like I had any other choice. I was caught in the shrewd trap he set up. Those words could very well mean, as I expected. Didn't you tell us to come to your workroom at the association? I came here to pick you up instead, because we have no time to lose. What happened to your right arm? It's appalling to see him assume an air of concern. Urza, deal with whatever he has to say for me. I'll be in the smoking lounge for a bit. Got it, detective. Moses? Is that really you, Moses? This voice. That son of a bitch Han Hee-jun screwed me over in more ways than one. Perhaps the real meaning of his at last was in spite of everything. Detective! Urza quickly stands between me and the unwelcome guest. Urza's here too. I missed you two so much. Her despicable voice, her sly eyes, and her pitying gaze towards us. Yes, please just leave. We can't handle this. Not today, Urza pleads in a quavering voice. Moses, dear, I forgot all about what happened that day, so can't we go back to how we used to be, in the good old days? Pretty please. That person hasn't changed one bit since that day, from her appearance to her demeanor. Right, Hee-jun? It's all in the past, isn't it? Han Hee-jun stays silent. That day I led hundreds of people to death. I wanted to save them from Diaz's arms, but I could not. Diaz, what shady bullshit were you playing with the Tao Young Produce Co. in District 14? Holding in my feelings, I quietly asked. That thing? Actually... Lady Diaz, I'm afraid we'll have to take a rain check on that. Dr. Moses has to take care of an urgent matter for the association right now. Han Hee-jun interfered with a laugh. Oh, really? That's too bad. Do invite these two to my home later, okay? Understood. I'll arrange it as soon as the doctor finishes her mission. We sat in the back seat of Han Hee-jun's vehicle. None of us are willing to speak first. I gaze out the window. The reason I've come to District 11 is not to make money, keeping my name in the association, or to solve distortions. It is to face the past. I had to be confronted with it someday. As I explained 2 months ago, Seven Associate wants the distortion in its whole, Doctor. Are you two listening to me? At least I am, Hee-jun Sanbei. Urza answers in my steed. We're heading to a rural village. Our association has been keeping an eye on the place for the last 2 months, and the time is ripe to harvest that fruit. Are you saying the town has been ravaged by the distortion already? I opened my mouth. No. It's a peaceful place, but it is distorted. Even I could tell, and I'm not capable of seeing the distortion. The car stopped in front of a street. We've arrived. You can get out now. Urza and I stepped out of the back. Han Hee-jun lowered the driver's side window. Walk down the street for around 15 minutes, and you'll find a small village. And what am I exactly supposed to do there? I haven't received any documentation detailing the mission. I took a pack of cigarettes out of the inner pocket of my coat and held a cigarette in my mouth. Urza lights it up. Dr. Moses, your smoking pipe? Surprised, Han Hee-jun asked. It's a long story, so care to remind me what we should do here? You'll see once you enter the village. Your work is to investigate the place and draw a cognate conclusion from it. Afterwards, report what happened to the village to the association. I swung my hand at Han Hee-jun's as a gesture that he told me enough, and such can sod off now. Dr. Moses, this will be our wretched job. I puffed the smoke into the air. Han Hee-jun raises the window back up. Please survive. He won't stop being an ominous sod. Leaving us behind, he drove soddily away. Urza, Yuria, get ready. Yes, detective. Urza tightened the grip on her dimensional bag. That was too cramped. Yuria climbed out of my pocket and assumed my shoulder. We walked along the narrow street and headed into the village. Chapter 23. Workers' Village. It's 10 in the morning. The sun beams down on the somber alley. We walk up the winding street. There are many unknown paths like this in the back streets. Uncharted streets not shown on any map. Walking into an unfamiliar street poses a great risk. As is the case with nests, each area of the back streets has its own culture. Unexpected savagery could be waiting around the corner. Walking down the street for around 15 minutes, as Han Hee-jun instructed, I could see a sign that reads, Quirkus Village. He didn't bother to give me a detailed description of this town. What are the cultural characteristics of the village? Are there any taboos? Anything? Will it be okay for us to readily set foot in the village? It probably will be. As much as a shady creep as Han is, he's not the type of person to lead us into a death in such a primitive way. I took some time to smoke at the entrance before entering the village. Detective, do you want me to prepare for combat just in case? Urza asked and I shook my head. Because we have no idea what this place is like, we shouldn't let ourselves look nervous. Let's act natural and pretend that we're travelers. Sanbei would be perfect as food tourists explaining local eateries. Yuria added. I smiled a little. That certainly does fit Urza well. That doesn't sound bad. We'll disguise ourselves as traveling riders who tour small restaurants hidden in the alleys and street corners around the city. My work is to cover the venues and evaluate the quality of their food. As for you, Urza, you could be my traveling partner and a bodyguard. A person who goes around corners of the back streets would need someone to escort them, which justifies your use of force. Gosh, I love that idea. I want to be a bodyguard that also judges food. Do as you wish. And Yuria, don't say a word outside of emergencies, and keep your voice low when you do have to talk. It'd be a hassle to explain how a teddy bear can move and speak to the townsfolk. Duly noted. I ashed my cigarette in a portable ashtray. Alright, time to head in. When I entered the town, I couldn't believe my eyes. It's a quiet and cozy place, and lush flowers and grass line the streets. I see houses and buildings in vibrant colors that don't match the grey tone of the city. Brick houses that are about 2 to 3 stories tall, wooden roof. This beauty and peace is what you'd expect in a nest somewhere. How could a town outside of the nest be so calm and pleasing? I know that there are many alleyways known to only a few, but I have never visited a place in the back streets that is as snug and tranquil as this fairy tale town. Perhaps it's my knowledge that is shallow. Maybe there are more places like this out there. Wow. Urza seems to be struck with amazement as well. I look around to see if there are any other villagers I could talk to. Not a single person outside. Perhaps it's obvious this is a weekday. The townspeople likely have jobs to do and money to earn. Even then, this is eerily quiet. Looks like I'll have to poke around the buildings in town. A restaurant should be an ideal starter. Urza, look for eateries nearby. Will do. Urza takes the lead with brisk steps. She seems quite excited. I lazily follow her along. This town appears to have about 50 households. The population would be around 80 people. A diner, cafe, or pub. There had to be at least one of those venues. Detective, over here, I found one. Urza waves her hand at me. Looks like she found something. I see a door with a sign that reads, Der Ma Tea House. Hearing the clanging of chimes, Urza and I enter the cafe. It's a small venue with only 4 tables and a floor space of 15 pyong. Oh? Welcome to the shop. A voice did not seem to expect a guess. Is this place open right now? I asked. Yes, of course. I presume you don't often get visit customers at this hour? You see, our town is rather a remote spot, so I rarely had any visitors outside of the townspeople here. Oh dear, they are a little wary of us. I suppose this is a closed village as I suspected. I must say, I was surprised as well. I never thought I would stumble upon such a beautiful town in an unexpected place like this. Pardon my manners, let me introduce myself. I'm Momo, a traveling gourmet who seeks out unknown restaurants in the obscure locations, and this is my partner. I'm Miss Momo's partner in travel. Name's Ezez. That's a false name, just as elaborate as mine. You were travelers, I see. Our town is certainly pretty, but I'm afraid it's not famous for its food. It's fine. Finding new restaurants on the streets I'm visiting for the first time is a genuine pleasure to me on its own. I'm Dewey, owner of the Der Moor Tea House. Oh, let me bring you the menu. We chose a table and took a seat. It's a charming little tea house. I could feel the warmth of a wooden construction. The afternoon sunlight shined through the windows, a sense of serenity and relaxation, which is a rarity in the city. It's like a luxury that only those in the affluent areas can have a taste of. Here's our menu. Take your time and give me an order when you're made up your mind. Whoa, it's only just that true alley restaurant connoisseurs should try out every dish on the menu, right, Miss Momo? Urza, you glutton. Slow down, Miss Ezez. Did you forget that our rule is to only try 3 dishes the chef recommends? I lightly pinched Urza's hand. She frowned a little in response. Dewey looks at us with a smile, seemingly amused by our little banter. Oh hey, isn't that doll Kamui the Red Bear? It's a teddy bear character that was famous for a while before it got discontinued. What? I was confused by the question that came completely out of left field. What's a Kamui? Urza naively asks. You idiots, you were supposed to go with the flow, not ask questions about what is common knowledge to them right away. This will only make us more suspicious. Oh right, you said you're travelers. I guess you come from a pretty far away place. The character was still pretty popular in its time though. Yuria slightly trembles on my shoulder. She must have a thing or two to say about that. Haha, this was a gift from an acquaintance of mine actually. I understand you're a big fan of the cute characters like this, Miss Ez. Didn't you know about this one? I gave Urza a subtle signal. Oh, Kumi! Kumi the Red Bear. I do know. It'd be a crime for me not to know Kumi. It's Komi. An awkward pause ensues. Honestly, it's the only way out of this. We're from the northern of the city. We don't know much about what goes on here down the south. The north? You've come from so far away. I've never left District 11 in my life, let alone gone anywhere near the northern areas. Well, you could say the same for most people in the city. I gave a serviceable response. It's time to change the topic. Well then, Dewey, I'd like to order 3 dishes of your suggestion. Okay, please wait warmly. Dewey went into the kitchen. I could hear the sounds of tableware rattling. I looked out the window. There's still no one out on the town streets. Is this town always so quiet? I talked to the kitchen with a somewhat loud voice. Right now is the season for the harvest festival of our town. People who've got time to spare are preparing the ceremony at the town hall. A period of celebration, a closed village, and unique customs. Not a good combination. Things like this usually follow a formula, and the formula usually ends with creepy cannibalism, ceremonies, or cultic carnage parties. However, if this was one of those predictable cases, Section 2 of the 7 wouldn't have even bothered to entrust me with solving it. I'll take it as a straightforward approach. A harvest festival? Could we join that festival, if you don't mind? Depending on the village's reaction, this can be categorized into one of two types: rejecting outsiders or actively inviting them to participate. In the case of the latter, there's a high probability that the outsider ends up being the sacrificial lamb. This one, being a welcoming kind, would be much more convenient for us to resolve the mission. It's simply too much of a hassle to try and sneak into a festival that excludes outsiders. Of course, a festival becomes merrier with more people enjoying it. Dewey came out of the kitchen with food for us: black tea, pancakes, and omelets. Looks plain. Urza's eyes sparkled. Well then, enjoy your food. I'll go ask everyone in the town hall. Thank you. Smiling, Dewey left the restaurant. Urza, what do you think? It was quite orthodox. You think so, too? Mm-hmm. A fairly sweet vanilla flavored pancake, moderately soft omelette, and a moderately fragrant cup of black tea. All standard. I placed my hand on my forehead. I guess I should have just leave her to fill her stomach for now. I ran my eyes over the table shop again. I didn't see any apparent anomalies. This is more than a cozy tea house. Some time has passed. Door chimes rang as Dewey returned to the tea shop. Miss Momo, Miss Ezes, the townspeople all gladly agreed to let you participate. Shall we head to the town hall if you're done eating? Quite the welcoming kind. I have no reason to refuse it. The faster this job is done, the better. Will do, Miss Ezes. How did you enjoy the meal? It was overwhelmingly satisfying, Miss Momo. We left the restaurant to follow Dewey. The time is just past 1 p.m. The village is a fascinating sight to behold. If I ever earn the right to retire and live at old age, perhaps this is where I choose to spend the rest of my life. While I was immersed in such thought, we've arrived at the town hall. This appears to be the widest building in town. Everyone, here they are, Miss Momo and Miss Ezes, the visitors I told you about. Urza and I nodded a greeting. There are about 40 people inside the building. Each of them bids us a welcome. This is not good. I looked at Urza and back at the townsfolk. Now I understand why Han Hijun gave me this job. A pleasure to meet you. I am Domus, head of the village. I heard from Dewey that you two are travelers. Yes, we're travelers who search for restaurants around the corners of the streets. I'm Momo, and this is Ezes. Hello, Urza cheerfully greets them. Thank you for allowing strangers like us to join the festival of your village. That's the charm of traveling, isn't it? Besides, festivals are more fun when there are other people to celebrate together. The townspeople are making effigies out of tree branches. We'd like to help you out with the preparation. No, you've come from a far place. You deserve some rest. I believe in participating in all stages of a festival, starting with how its preparation is the way to truly enjoy, as you mentioned. Domus laughed. You raise a good point. Then I'll tell the people here that you two are helping out as well. We helped the townsfolk with preparing the festival for a while. I carefully watched them while we worked. What I see confirms that the suspicion I have is not just my imagination. Is there a place where I can smoke in this village? I asked a villager standing next to me. Oh, you're free to smoke outside as long as there's no one else around. Just make sure not to throw the cigarette butt on the ground. Sure thing. I stepped out of the town hall. The clock struck 4. There's still not a single person out in the streets as I can see. I went to a remote place and pulled out a cigarette, and I placed a hand to my forehead. Detective Moses, did you figure anything out? Yuria whispers. I puffed out a smoke. Yes, I cannot see the distortion from any of the townspeople here. Chapter 24. The Emotions of Life. You can't see the distortions, but that has to mean that all the villagers have psychomint, according to our theories so far. We'll see soon enough. I stared at the cigarette smoke I just puffed out. If I had my smoking pipe, I could have used that white breath to grasp the truth of this festival and the situation a bit more easily. The pipe and Vespa, it's like thinking about overdue homework you procrastinated on the whole night. I walk back to the town. Miss Momo! Urza waves her hand at me, as if she was waiting for me to come back. Dewey is next to her. What's the business, Miss Ezes? You see, Miss Momo, it's almost time for dinner, so they're asking us to aid them with preparing food for the festival. They thought epicures like us would love to see the process firsthand. Oh dear, I'm not cut out for cooking. Oh, but Miss Momo is a terrible cook. What do we do? How I wish I could smack her upside the head. I'll help out your side. Don't be anxious. Dewey kindly spoke. And my wife is here to help as well. Nice to meet you. I'm Miyu. Let's all work together to prepare the food. I can't see the distortion from this person either. I'll try, though as Miss Ez has mentioned, I am not exactly skilled in the culinary arts myself. Don't worry too much about it. We make special kinds of food for the festival. Miyu said, a special dish? Human meat would be too cliche for this case. Urza and I followed the two into the kitchen, inside the town hall. Around 10 people are gathered in the kitchen, preparing ingredients for the food. The kitchen feels as snug as the rest of the village. The earthly smell of flour dough filled the air. Dewey and I stood before the kitchen counter. Urza went to help Miyu with preparing ingredients. We washed our hands with soap, and I wore the apron Dewey gave. So, what are we going to make? That's rather simple. Bread and soup. Simple food served at a festival. The plain list is what we are trying to make here. Your mind becomes contaminated when you fill your stomach with delicious, extravagant food. Eating extravagant food contaminates the mind is not an expression people would usually say. Contaminate the mind? That's a novel way to put it. Ahaha, you think so too, right? It's what our town leader says. They work tirelessly for the mental soundness of our people. This festival is part of their effort. Will the mind become healthy after participating in the festival? Of course, you'll get to experience it as well, Miss Momo. During the festival, we wash away all the filth from our minds. Maybe that's why our town hasn't had any crime at all, unlike most other towns. While Dewey is speaking, something emerges from their chest. Tiny black arms crawl out. The distortion is manifesting. What is this? Did the person just say something that provoked their own mind? Urza and Miyu bringing clean ingredients for us, and Dewey put the ingredients in the pot, one by one. They wait for some time before adding each ingredient. Is there a specific order you're supposed to follow or something? Is this festival held every year? No, it takes place monthly. That's a little different from most festivals I know. It must cost a tidy sum to stage every month. Haha, although we call it a festival, it's actually rather simple and modest. We only serve bread and soup in these festivals, just like what we're preparing now. It doesn't mean we put a little care into cooking of the food, though. A festival where the mind is cleansed, held once per month. This smells like a religious rite. Furthermore, the soup has no meat or any animal protein. It's cooked purely with greens and vegetables, carrots, potatoes, mushrooms, and more. It's an average vegetarian food. Denouncing meat as an impure food is a belief commonly seen in many religious activities. Okay, Miss Momo, let's season the food with a pinch of salt. A festival where the mind is cleansed, the town people whose distortions cannot be seen. Do we set a manifestation of the distortion? I need to find clues to draw out an answer. Wait, Miss Momo, that's sugar, not salt. The cooking is almost finished. I didn't see any suspicious ingredients, such as hallucinogenics, being added throughout the process. The festival is about to begin. People sit around tables for 6 in the town hall cafeteria. Bowls of soup are placed on each table. A loaf of baked bread is put in front of each of us. Our table consisted of Urza, Dewey, Miyu, and myself, and lastly, the town leader, along with a couple life-sized wooden effigies. They're the figures the townsfolk were making during the daytime. The effigies also have soup and bread placed in front of them. I looked around. There's a stage at the front of the dining hall. On the stage is a steel chair. The cafeteria is structured in a way that people can see the stage from their tables. Miss Momo, it's completely devoid of meat. Urza whines. Sitting across from me, I ignored her. There are more important matters to address. I can now see the distortion from the townspeople. The degrees of their distortion are all mild and slight, like Dewey's. I reckon not everyone in this town has joined the festival. There are 57 people in this dining hall, excluding Urza and I. No, that's not the case. All the villagers have gathered here. The town leader answered. The town seemed to have about 50 households. If it's true that these people are the whole population, that would mean most of them live alone. However, I take the wooden effigies into account, the total becomes 102. That isn't far from my estimate. It's even possible that the effigies are occupying the seats where other townfolks used to be. Where have they disappeared to? I need to investigate that. You must be remarkably pure of heart, Miss Momo. The town leader spoke graciously. I don't see any filth in you. A mysterious phrase. Now, everyone, let the harvest begin. The town leader stood up and announced with a loud voice. Let us laugh first. All the townsfolk burst out into a laugh at the same time, including Due and Miyu. I laughed along. In a festival you're joining for the first time, you have to observe the mood and the people and follow their behavior accordingly. Urza awkwardly laughed. The collective laughing fit went on for 10 minutes when the town leader abruptly stopped laughing. The townspeople simultaneously quieted down. The town leader sat down. The distortions of the people progressed a little. Let us eat the soup. The leader spoke with majesty. The soup has a clean, savory taste. The bowl wasn't too large, so I could eat all of it before 5 minutes had passed. Let us gush out our anger, you filthy, heinous bastards. The town leader lashed out at the wooden effigy sitting at our table. People all yelled profanities too vulgar for description at the effigies sitting at the tables. What are they upset about? Dewey and Miyu were doing the same, swearing with forbidding faces. Urza and I followed suit. The townspeople's distortions progressed further. Once again, when the town leader stopped cursing, the whole cafeteria fell quiet. Let us eat the bread. The town leader said, slowly their ragged breath. It is an ordinary loaf of buttered bread, made from flour. The loaf is about the size of a fist. It doesn't have any particular flavor. The people quietly ate their bread. Karamok. I could hear a loud noise of teeth biting into something hard next to me. Ah! Dewey started bleeding from their mouth. A black object was inside the bread they were holding. That seems to be what broke their teeth. That thing feels familiar for some reason. A round of applause! Following the town's leader's words, all the people clapped in unison. Dewey, go to the chair. Yes. Dewey slowly rose from the seat and walked to the front of the dining hall. They climbed to the stage and sat on the steel chair. Let us all cry for Dewey, who will receive all of our filth. The town leader says, gritting their teeth and dropping tears. Everyone in the dining hall wails. The people cried their hearts out for Dewey. Something starts happening. The distortions of the townsfolk grow severe. The leader puts a tiny black box in Dewey's head. That thing bears a close resemblance to the box we saw at the Tao Young Produce Co. The only difference is the size. I see now. I have to put a stop to this. Now, if I want to save Dewey, my head is ringing from all the cries. The box begins to vibrate. Detective Moses, this is... Yuria whispered. Urza, pull Dewey out of the chair right now. Got it, Detective. Urza sprinted from the seat without delay. This is similar to the case of the Tao Young Produce Co. Distortions flow out of people. A stream of distortions akin to a river is made. The extracted distortions seep into Dewey, who is crying. Miyu screams as the distortion manifests from her body. Her distortion is then pulled out of her, flowing to Dewey. Dewey is taking up all the distortions of the villagers. In their words, they're receiving their filth. The place is filled with the sounds of lament. Dewey's body gradually swells in an unstable manner. This is driving me mad. Urza stormed out to save Dewey, but she soon falters and kneels down. Even Urza's distortion is about to be pulled out. What happens if the distortion is extracted from a person? Will the mental scars associated with it be erased? No, this is not the time to think about such things. I smashed my right elbow on the table. A blade extends from my prosthetic arm. The dining hall is echoing with sorrowful cries. Stop what you're doing this instant! I held the blade of my prosthetic arm at the town leader's throat. Everyone, let us rejoice now. Rejoice! The town leader shouted without so much of a flinch. The townspeople cheered. Their shouts of joy could be heard, better described as screams. Let us bid farewell. Make their parting a joyful one. As soon as they finished their words, the stage floor beneath Dewey opened, causing them to fall through the gap. A dull sound was heard moments later. Judging from the interval between the fall and the echo, the basement space isn't too deep. The stream of distortions follow Dewey into the space below. The trapdoor begins to close. The scream of bliss continues. Urza, we need to go after Dewey. I ran forward and helped Urza up. Curses. The trapdoor is about to close. I used all of my strength to get up to the stage, carrying Urza, who was on the verge of fainting. I pushed her down the opening before making the fall myself. Thud. I fell on top of Ursa. We thankfully didn't fall from a height too high. When I looked up, the ceiling was already shut on us. I could still faintly hear the cheering of the townspeople. A putrid smell stings my nose. I had to look at my surroundings. Detective Moses, look over there, Yuria said, her voice shaking. You've got to be kidding me. I placed my hand on my forehead. This is a prison. The distortion of distortions. This isn't the distortion of a single individual, it's an amalgamation of people's distortions. There are 45 of such distortions down here. They match the number of wooden effigies I saw above. There are multiple distortions coalesced into a large mass. I cannot begin to fathom, to speculate the cause or abilities of these entities. Dewey moans and squirms, their flesh expands and bursts. From the ruptures, arms and legs grow out. A swarm of butterflies come forth. Soap spuds pour out. Utterly unfathomable distortions start crawling in our direction. I don't have my pipe with me. Urza is lying unconscious. Fortunately, there's a door behind us. Yuria, can you open your workshop now? I quietly spoke. Huh? Yes, I can. Then summon it. Now. Understood, Detective Moses. Yuria hopped out of the shoulder and touched the steel door. Now if I could open this door. I pulled the knob of the steel door, however, it won't budge. I used a fairy I'd been keeping in the inner coat of my pocket and gave it another try. The steel door still refuses to move. That means the door isn't locked. Isn't a locked portal that leads to another place. This is functionally closer to a wall. It has been sealed from the outside, defined as a door that won't ever see its intended use. The distortion is getting closer to us. I kept forcefully pulling the doorknob with all my might. My right arm was stretched tight. I have nothing else but the motor strength of my prosthetic arm to rely on. This is an expensive arm Urza picked for me. Hoping that Urza's choice of prosthetic limb was correct, I pulled the doorknob using all my strength. Steel chafing against the door frame produced a loud grating noise. The ear-piercing screech drew the attention of the bestial distortion, which said stunning, running toward me. Damn it. The screws on my right arm squeak. The joints connecting the prosthetic arm to my shoulder are starting to break from the strain, blood leaking from the open gasps. This hurts like hell. I shut my eyes tight and squeezed out my strength one more time. Krang! With a roaring metal-like noise, the door swung open. A flash of yellow light bolted across the room in a straight line. A gaping hole was made in the body of the beast-like distortion that had almost reached me. The yellow harpoon got lodged in the wall on the opposite side of the room. Vesper stands in front of the open door. With matted hair and haggard look, he looks around a bit before drawing his yellow huando. Dr. Moses, you will have to take responsibility for what you've done. Glaring at me, Vesper spoke in a voice. Chapter 25. The Cellar. Before that, we'll have to handle this situation. I assume these creatures are of similar nature to what was filmed in your footage. Vesper mused before charging into the distortions. The creature, each distorted in its own right, are slashed with the same blade, leaving a yellow trail in its path. When Vesper lifts his right arm, the harpoon stuck in the wall returns to his hand. It seems his broken arm has completely healed up. He slashes one distortion after another, with flamboyant yet disciplined movement. A pointy tentacle rapidly extending from a distortion gets sliced before it even reaches him. A beastly paw swung at him, falls to the floor as a trail of yellow light passes through. After neutralizing each distortion, Vesper thrusts his sword and harpoon into them to end them for good. The subdued distortions soon restore their human form, albeit as corpses brutally smashed and cut. I suppose this is the law of the phenomenon taking its inevitable course. As they transformed back into humans, the distortions that had been shrouding them scattered away. They're most likely returning to the people who they originally belonged to. Vesper continues to advance without a hitch, creating yellow trails as his blade. If my prediction is correct, the most dangerous distortion should be lurking in the deepest corner of this room. The victim of the first festival, who had to take up the distortions of 100 people. Their shape would be positively unimaginable. In our current state, there's no reason to take a gamble by confronting such a being. All we need to do is find a way out of this dungeon. Hey, Vesper! The distortion, he... Zing! A yellow harpoon grazed my face and nailed itself to the wall behind me. Blood flowed from the cut it bore on my left cheek. Silence, Dr. Moses. I do not wish to converse with the person who broke my trust. An obvious consequence. If you dare run your mouth to me one more time before I ask first, my blade will slit your throat next. Nothing I say to Vesper will get through to him right now. I tapped Urza on the cheek, who is still unconscious. There is no mask on Urza's face, which means Dewey has a hold of Urza's distortion, among many others. For Urza to come back to her usual self, Dewey must die. This is the causality. I cannot solve the distortions here using my usual methodology. They are the distortions of so many people merged into one. It is impossible to face the pasts of each other and every one of them. The only option remaining is to physically dismantle them, like Vesper is doing. However, as a result, while Urza could return to normal, we will have to kill all 45 people trapped in this cellar. Moreover, what will become of the townsfolk who will be subject to the accumulated backlog of their own distortions pouring back into them at once? While it may be possible to solve the distortions that only possess a single texture, each as opposed to the amalgamations down here, those distortions will be severe, to say the least. Distortion of a singular pattern. Now I see the picture. It was that son of a bitch Han Hee-jun's design to cause this. Distortions tangled with impurity are not what the association needs. A pure distortion manifested from a single person. If we take all the distortions in the cellar, there will be 57 unmixed distortions overground up for grabs. Saving everyone was never a viable option in the first place. There was no saving this town the moment the townspeople started passing their distortions onto one another. The most reasonable choice I can make here is to help kill all the distortions in this cellar, and to solve the unmixed distortions that will manifest in the town, all above with my methods. If I woke Urza up and just ran away with her, I'd fail to save anyone. I need my smoking pipe, but the pipe is in Vesper's possession. Yuria, is there any equipment in your workshop I could use? Huh? Are you going to use it yourself, detective? Yes. Those gadgets were all made with Urza's sun-based strength in mind. The force will be too strong for you to handle. I just need something that can land one huge blow. This prosthetic arm can deal with the recoil. Wait here for a second. I'll fetch something useful from my stellar. Yuria ran to her workshop. I searched the room for Dewey. Urza can regain consciousness once Dewey has been disposed of. With Urza awake, I will be able to talk to Vesper without losing my head. Many times I have sacrificed the lesser for the greater in my life. Whenever I make such a choice, I can't help but feel as if the corner of my heart were being cut out. I see its distortion that appears to be Dewey crawling in a corner. It's not hostile. It wriggles on the wall, spewing butterflies, bubbles, paint, and other things from its body. Here it is, Detective Moses. You can equip it on your right arm. Yuria handed me a giant glove. It looks like a power gauntlet made for Urza. Careful, Detective. That device was specifically for Urza Sanbei to use. I put on the gauntlet. Yuria, how do I use it? Clench and unclench your fist twice, then make a fist. Throw a punch once the gauntlet turns red. What can I do for them is to end them in a single blow and make it as painless as possible. Dewey may not be aggressive for now, but they might retaliate fiercely if I provoke them. I close and open my hand as Yuri instructed. The glove vibrates, releasing hot steam. My hand was always forced. Even when there seems to be a choice, there was always a right answer. I was obligated to choose. The glove was heated. Streams of steam escaped the cage, creating an intense noise. Vesper turns his head to catch a glimpse of me, then goes back to slashing distortions. Threw my fist at the wall. The sound of crushing flesh and exploding mechanical parts rang through the cellar. Detective Moses! Yuria shouted. Ugh! I grabbed a painkiller from my pocket and injected it into my chest. Dewey returned to human form, or at least their lower half did. No one will be able to tell that this cadaver was Dewey's with its upper half missing. My face and clothes are smudged with bits of flesh and blood. The prosthetic arm has been reduced to pieces from the recoil. Its components scattered all over the floor. My right shoulder was gone along with the arm, as Yuri expected. The force of the device was simply too strong for my body. It served its purpose nonetheless. A mask appeared on Urza's face. I shambled over to her and moved my left hand with as much strength as I could muster to wake her up. Detective? You're awake. What happened with your arm this time, Detective? Oh, Detective, you've done it again. Getting yourself hurt while I'm away. Urza scolded me in a tearful voice. It's not like I voluntarily walk into harm's way. Okay, now, I need you to get my pack back from Vesper. Vesper? What is he doing out here? You made it quite far already. Talk about inexorable. I'll explain the details later. Urza can't manifest Psychomet like last time because Yuria couldn't use her workshop to make more pendants, but we can still bluff. Urza, stay alert and ready yourself for combat. A harpoon will come our way in a moment. I quietly whispered to Urza, and she nodded as she put on her combat glove. Hey, Vespa! A flash of yellow light caught my eye. Zing! A harpoon came hurling toward me. Urza quickly deflected it by kicking its shaft with her right leg. The harpoon fails to reach me and gets stuck on the floor. I believe I warned you not to speak with me. Vespa was standing in front of me before I knew it. He is covered in bits and pieces of distortion as well. Do you wish to put a conclusion to our conflict now? Vespa said, sweeping up his rumpled hair. He looks haggard and gaunt, but he doesn't appear to tired at all. His eyes still gleam with energy. Think you can handle us in that condition? Shaking dust off her hand, Urza boasted. Don't be mistaken. I'm not offering you a deal this time. This is a threat. I looked into Vespa's eyes. If you don't follow my orders, you will die here. Besides, we're in District 11. Did you say District 11? Vespa let out a deep sigh. It's understandable that this news would hit him like a bolt from a blue. Then again, we merely did what we could to survive, and Vespa hunted us in order to get his work done. I shouldn't let emotion get in the way of this factual matter. What do you want this time, Dr. Moses? My pipe. Vespa took the pipe out of his coat and tossed it to me. Caught it with my left hand. And my right arm? I ate it. After all, I had to survive by any means. In that instant, Urza charged at Vespa with incredible speed. Urza struck Vespa in the right cheek with her fist. Vespa instantaneously retaliated by striking his left knee into her chest. The two got into a melee, unfazed by each other's blows. What a doggish mess. It's like the fight between a golden retriever and a Doberman. Yuria put my thoughts in words. Urza, that's enough. I've lost my right shoulder. Even if I got my arm back, it would no longer be possible to attach it to my body. And I'm not a purist when it comes to my body parts. Either Urza took a quick step back and stood in front of me. Vespa, you said you saw the footage, right? I have, Vespa replied, spitting a bloody sputum on the floor. The beings here are much the same as the creatures in that video you saw. In essence, people with the know-how call them distortions. These are not ordinary distortions, however. They were artificially created and are in fact distortions of multiple people mixed together. It would be easier to understand if you view them as something similar to the infamous pianist. Are they not similar to the monsters in the outskirts anyway? You could say that. Point is, simple physical force may not be enough to deal with some of them. There's no guarantee that their attacks will be physical either. Didn't you feel it as you progressed further in? How should we terminate them? Kill them with fire? No, you'll need my powers of the smoking pipe. Yuria, I could use a twining ribbon. Yes, Detective Moses. Yuria went into the workshop. Dr. Moses, what is the purpose of taking up on such an occupation? To learn about the distortion. Are you saying that you acted out of simple curiosity? You're rather selfish. Thanks to you, I have lost quite a things. I won't deny it. I am a selfish person, as you said. I only act for the sake of self-satisfaction. You should know that neither of us are following some noble cause to begin with. You aren't seeking sympathy from me, are you? Vespa glared at me and put on a faint smile. You're right about that. We were simply doing our jobs. Detective Moses, here it is. I worked as fast as I could to make it. Yuria shook my legs to grab my attention and handed an orange ribbon to me. Urza, tie this ribbon to my pipe for me. Got it. I held the smoking pipe and adorned with orange ribbon in my hand. I missed this sensation. I blew a white breath into the pipe. The white smoke shrouds Vespa and Urza, as well as permeating into his yellow Juanda and her gloves. What is this now? It'll protect you from the psychological damage some distortions will inflict, and the attacks you perform will leave more than just a physical impact. This is a method devised by Yuria and I. Based on the capability of the white breath to protect one from mental attacks, we perceived the idea that it could perhaps be used in an offensive way. Cause the same kind of damage. The preparations are complete. We will head deeper into the cellar and take care of every distortion in this place. Solve the distortions of the town people above. Vespa, when this is over, I will do all I can to straighten out your situation. You certainly have a way with words, I will admit. Well now, let's head into the deeper area. Yes, detective. Vesper and Urza led the way, with Yuri and I in tow. The distortions assumed more disordered shapes than deeper we went. Urza crushed them with her fists, and Vesper cut down the ones in his way one by one. The area we passed through were littered with the bodies of people who were freed from the distortion in death. I placed my hand on my forehead. I still haven't grown indifferent to the weight of the actions like this. It feels as though I am constantly committing sins. Despite that, I must advance. With Vesper and Urza's forces combined, the distortions are easily dealt with. Soon enough, we are faced with one final distortion remaining, inhabiting the deepest area, in spite of the white breath coiling around us. Merely looking at it makes my head pound. It takes the form of a spear of flesh that floats in the air. I cannot begin to imagine the desolation and anguish this person may have felt, storing the distortion of 100 people. Vesper throws a harpoon at it right away. Blood spurts from the wound it left on its body. However, the harpoon couldn't dig deep into it. It's only stuck on the surface. Dozens of arms radiate from the globular distortion at once in response. The arms are all shaped differently, each composed of a different type of matter. Vesper swiftly severs the arms and tentacles coming at us. Urza pulls back and loads up strength on her arm, then lands her fist on the harpoon stuck on the distortion for a smashing blow. Propelled by the impact of the punch, the harpoon managed to tear a sizable hole in the distortion's body. The gigantic heart lying at the center was exposed. That needs to be destroyed. The hole is slowly closing. Urza, stop the open wound from closing. Vesper, cut the arms and trying to grab Urza. Yuria, tie a penetrating ribbon around my pipe. Urza jumps into the distortion and forcefully spreads the rupture open. Vesper wards off the threat approaching Urza. Yuria jumped from my shoulder and onto my arm to tie a purple ribbon around my pipe. I took a deep, violet breath. The pipe assumed the shape of a matchlock rifle. Detective, the walls are closing in too tightly. I struggled to brace the gun against my shoulder using only my left arm. Dr. Moses, we need you to act quickly. I only have one shot and I must make it count. I put forth all of my concentration. Detective! I pulled the trigger. The bullet flew past Urza's head and hit the distortion's heart. The spherical distortion squirmed and boiled for a short while, then blew up with a deafening blast. A stream of distortions poured out from where it was and flowed away. Covered in blood and flesh, we stood before the corpse of a young person whose heart was punctured. Chapter 26. Expulsion. There are no more distortions left in the cellar. All that remains are the bodies of 46 people. Go ahead and tell us what to do next, Dr. Moses. Vesper asked me in a cynical tone. We should go up, of course. I can't put my hand on my forehead or smoke from my pipe anymore. I can't seem to move my left shoulder as I will. I twisted and moved every part of my body I could to aim the rifle with only one arm, but I guess that wasn't enough to mitigate the gun's recoil. My left shoulder is dislocated, and my right shoulder is gone. I'm completely powerless. Urza, please carry me on your back. You bet, detective. Vesper, I want you to exert physical strength on my behalf for a while. I can only take responsibility for you after we finish this job. If you wish. Vesper gave an icy reply. Urza picked up the smoking pipe on the floor and held me in her arms. Urza, I asked for a piggyback ride, not this? It's easier for me to respond to danger in this pose. Can't believe I'm being carried like a bride at this age. I yielded myself to Urza's embrace. Yuria was sitting on top of her head before I noticed. Leaving this cellar is going to be a fairly easy task. The floor of the stage we fell from didn't appear to be very solid, and it isn't too high above us, so Urza and Vesta will be able to easily break the ceiling and secure us an exit. The real problem is what comes after we go up. I'm frankly afraid to imagine what kind of scenery might await us. We traced our way back to where we fell. Yuria closed the door to her workshop and withdrew it. When we opened the steel door again, a heap of rocks were waiting on the other side. The wall of large rocks crudely and doggedly piled on top of one another, in a reminiscent of the townspeople's vehement disregard. The exit is right above us, Vesper. Am I to slash open the ceiling? Yes. Vesper brandished his blade without asking further. After a few trails of yellow light flashed in the air, the stage floor broke down. Urza smoothly dodges the debris falling from above. We jumped up to the ground floor. When we got up, carnage was unfolding before our eyes. The polychromatic scene simulates and overwhelms my mind. A hellish landscape we can do nothing to fix. This might be one of the 5 most detestable sceneries I have seen in my life. Right. This is what is destined to happen when distortions are entwined with each other. This is not like what happened in the cellar. While the distortions I faced down below were akin to people with multiple heads, each asserting their own thoughts, the ones here are independent beings expressing their unadulterated desires. I should have known better than anyone, yet I was oblivious of the fact. No, I merely buried it in the back of my mind, not wanting to bring it up again. Dr. Moses, I regret to inform you that I am not capable enough to control the situation, Vesper said in a low-pitched voice. Detective Moses, the situation here looks worse than in the basement? Iria said. Hiding back on Urza's head, I can hear Urza's gulp from the nervousness. The distortions, each different from the rest, are killing each other in their unique ways. The strong harasses and tear into the weak, as if to flaunt and demonstrate their powers. The scenery is truest manifestation of town's collective minds that had been suppressed until now. A glaring variety of colorful distortions grapple and rip one another. This is what I would call the festival of the town. Can I really manage to save one of them? Noticing our presence, some of the distortions turn to us and fix their gaze. A white-furred beast in the shape of an ape that has no eyes. A red tetrahedron with 8 eyes. A yellow mantis with the head of a lion. I sense hostility from those 3 entities. Vesper and Urza will be able to handle the ape and the mantis somehow. The tetrahedron, on the other hand, my pipe will be needed. I closed my eyes and made up my mind. Urza, put the pipe in my mouth, please. Yes, detective. I ought to save at least one of these distortions. The choice I made in the cellar will be pointless otherwise. Urza placed the pipe to my lips as I asked. I let out a deep, pale breath. It's the sensation of life force leaving the body. The breath is beautiful, for it is respired as the cost of life. A translucent turquoise powder, taking on the hue of appetite, scattered the town hall. Casting a blue glow, the powder adheres to the distortion. They begin to slowly slow down not too long after. This is the powder of death. It brings the living closer to mortality. Death signifies silence and cessation. All living beings are brought to. My lungs aren't big enough to exhale a breath that can store this many distortions at once. Still, it'll earn me some time to confront them, at least one distortion. Even if I can only save one of them, I must do what I can. Damn it, this might very well be my last breath. Detective, you promised not to use that breath. Urza blew a gasket. I ignored her furious scolding. Vesper, don't strike the distortions unless they attack first. I'm afraid I won't be able to obey that, Dr. Moses. Vesper reached for the hilt of his sword. It appears that his patience has reached its limit, and yet I thought I could reason with the young man to an extent. Bang! A similar blast to the explosion of a firework was heard from the outside the town hall, and footfalls rumbled the ground at the same time. I can hear the steps of multiple people, all wearing shoes. Familiar footsteps I've heard in the past. A group of people in black long coats and gold long masks, adorned with a single symbol of an eye, storm the building. Fixers under Dia's immediate supervision. Ujat. They form a dark wave as they wield their scimitars and ruthlessly charge into the distortions. So that's how it is. The distortions, rendered immobile by the pale breath, are helplessly incapacitated one by one. Please forgive our abruptness, Dr. Moses, and I must say, you didn't disappoint. I knew I could trust you to subdue the distortions of this town without unnecessary casualty. Han Hee-jun walks toward us from the town's hall entrance. This request wasn't issued by the Seven Association. Han Hee-jun. He once again serves as DS' obedient little lapdog. He always has. I'm a hypocrite. Once again, I couldn't save anyone. Our party and Vesper were moved to a corner of the town square where we could sit down to lick our wounds. Ujat, the private military force under DS' command, cleanly sorted out the town situation. They cage the distortions and make assiduous preparations to transport them as well as treat our injuries with great care. Urza won't say a word. She still seems upset about me using pale breath. Then Han Hee-jun approaches us. Dr. Moses, have this warm cup of tea as you rest. What is DS planning to do with the distortions? How can I possibly grasp what's on her mind? Dot dot dot. Anyway, I didn't quite expect you to be with Vespa Crabro, the taboo hunter of Encorp. Is he that famous? Those in the know who are familiar with him, I work for Seven Association, you know. Urza and Vespa are sitting next to me, still keeping their mouths shut. And I brought news for you, Vespa Crabro, sir. Is there any sincerity in that thing Han Hee-jun says? He knows everything he needs to know, even the fact that Vespa will be with us. What is it? Han Hee-jun handed an envelope over to Vespa. He opened it and took out the letter inside, shortly before crumbling it and throwing it to the ground. Han Hee-jun, give this poor fellow a shirt or any other clothing to put on. It's embarrassing to look at, you know. The jacket and shirt Vespa was wearing has been torn to rags after repeated battles. As you wish, Dr. Moses. Han Hee-jun beckoned his finger to an Ujit, who brought him in a white dress shirt. I'll invite you and your company to Lady Diaz's place once this has been tidied up. Let me ask you something, Hee-jun. What is it, Dr. Moses? Is it fun to mess around, sitting on top of my head? It is not very pleasant, to be honest. After saving goodbye, Han left us and walked off to the site of the apprehension for the distortions. I hear that you can see the distortions from people. Looking at me, Vespa asked. Yes. I answered, smoking a cigarette with my patched up left hand. Then tell me, Dr. Moses, what do you see from me right now? I see the tattered wings of a bee on your back. Vespa has been expelled from Encorp. Chapter 27. The Mansion. We're in Han Hee-jun's car, driving down the road. Ujat's vehicles follow us, loaded with the distortions they've captured. The atmosphere in the car is comparable to that of a funeral. No one dares to speak first. Only Urza is being fidgety, struggling to withstand this mood, not one to break the silence though. Where are we headed? It was Vespa. He opened his mouth and spoke in a raspy voice. You have been invited. You'll be able to give your tired and injured bodies as much needed rest there. Han Hee-jun answered. We're headed to Diaz's place, I bet. This is awful. I can already picture what will happen once we arrive in my head. Right now, I have no choice but to play in her hands. So, have we passed our little test? Yes, my personal impression is that your way of handling the matter and the results it produces are excellent, as I thought, Dr. Moses. I am certain Milady will think like. Sure she will. Driving along curvy roads, we arrived at a mansion lit with fanciful lights. A backstreet's inhabitant could never dare to dream to earn a tiny room in a house like this, even if they worked their tail off for their entire life. To add insult to injury, this isn't a house where DS permanently resides. It's a vacation home. A place as significant to her as a pair of shoes stored in the corner of a closet that may or may not be worn someday. He probably owns at least one mansion like this in every nest. After we step out of the car, Han Hee-jun leads the way for us. Before long, DS come running to me with open arms and hugged me. Moses, sweetheart, you must have taken great pain to get your job done. Good work, darling. I see you're still having fun playing with me like a puppet on a string. Don't be so cold about it. I knew you would do a wonderful job handling it, right, Hee-jun? Yes, indeed. A sudden growl interrupts the conversation. Urza's belly is such an honesty alarm. Sorry. Oh, Urza, I knew you were starving. You poor baby girl. I prepared a ton of rare dishes for you. Come on, let's eat together. Can this sassy boy clad in yellow dine as well? I asked, pointing at Vespa. Dia answered in a complete apathetic tone. More than 100 kind of dishes are being placed on the long dinner table, and only 6 people sit around this table. That means most of the food will go to waste. Each plate of food on this table probably costs as much as a house in a residential area of the backstreets. In that sense, could this meal be considered extravagant? Such a description only applies to the consumption beyond one's means. Diaz can easily afford this and more. To her, this meal would be the equivalent of purchasing a sandwich at your local Ham Hang Pang Pang. I'm sure you set up that scheme because there's something you want me to do. Cut to the chase, will you? Can you go to Elcorp's nest? Dia says with a merry smile. Are you referring to Laboratory Corporation, a wing that recently fell? Vespa said impatiently. Mm-hmm. Diaz replied to him without so much as a thought, glanced in his direction. You still haven't done away with that dream, huh? Of course not. I'm a girl with many dreams, you know. Isn't that right, Urza? Yeah. L Corp. Once again, I set out for a fallen nest. This time, this is the first time I'm making a journey to such a place since the Smoke War. Brings back several memories. The night is long, Moses. Let me tell you all about the favors I want to ask of you, taking all the time we need. Oh, for the wing's sake. Chapter 28. Our mission. Are you proposing that I work for you, like I used to? I won't ask you to be an Ujat. No. I'd like to hire Miss Moses as the distortion detective. The fallen nest of Elcorp has now likely become a battlefield for numerous syndicates and fixers. What can the distortion detective do in the midst of such a strife fought with cold weapons? Aw, Urza, it's so nice to see you enjoy your meal, Dia said with a smile in her eyes. Urza is conscious of Dia's attention, but she still hastily fills her stomach with the food on the table. What's more astonishing was the speed at which Vesper consumed his share. It almost looks like if he was inhaling food, rather than him dining like one normally would. Perhaps my prediction was incorrect. Maybe there won't be any food left to go waste. Leaving the two to their meal, I continue the conversation with Diaz. Diaz, you seem to be interested in capturing distortions alive. That's right. Are you trying to fulfill your dream by using them? Half right, half wrong. Diaz never lies. She won't tell the full truth, either. That's the kind of fellow she was. She set a clear limit on how much she's willing to share. Will we find larger number of distortions to capture in L Corp's nest, or is there a particular distortion you're keeping an eye on in that place? Do you have any idea what's going on in Nest L right now, sweetheart? She just gave me a poignant stare, pulling her eyebrows together. What an abominable look. Lady Diaz, may I have the pleasure of explaining this part to her? Han Hee-jun butts in. Okay, I'll leave it to you. Hee-jun, I'm a total klutz at exposition. Han Hee-jun looked into my eyes as if to seek my non-verbal agreement before giving the brief. L Corp's nest is currently under a shroud of fog. It is of unknown origin. A shroud of fog? Another resemblance to the smoke war. The situation isn't quite like the smoke war. This fog simply hinders any attempts to observe by obstructing vision. Anyone who enters ends up getting lost. Still, I imagine quite the bloodshed is going on in the nest. And as you suspect, syndicates and fixers are murdering one another in that place. Because it's a tempting opportunity to make a fortune. You would be correct. Have the fingers stuck there into their metaphorical pie as well? The thumb and the index have made a move. The index of all things, that's a bugger. So, what is the reason you're sending me into that war zone? I'm not seeing how any of this is relevant to the distortion. Diaz glances at me with one eye open, taking a sip of tea. There have been an extraordinary number of reports that are thought to be the cases of distortion in that nest. Didn't you just say it's impossible to observe things in there? The fog merely makes it difficult to navigate your way in the nest. We do acquire clear reports of what people encounter within the foggy nest. You want us to capture distortions alive from there? That is correct. And there's more. We want the distortion in a more complete form. Let the distortion progress further. Foster, if necessary. Stir people's minds even further? How far does it have to go? Doctor, are you familiar with the term abnormality? Abnormality? No, never heard of it. In that case, I'll leave it up to your judgment. I'm only a fixer that resolves distortions. That makes you the most adequate person for the task of neutralizing. Fine, what comes next? Tell Urza to carry the distortion on her shoulder. Startled, Urza paused her busy hands and shook her head while looking at me in the eye. Ujit will come to pick it up for you when you do. How convenient. Are they going to accompany us or something? Do you need the support of Ujat? Nope, I hate traveling in crowds. I figured you'd say so. If one is prone to getting lost within the nest and surveillance over distance is out of the question, how are they going to find us? Dia smiled and gave me a well-packaged box as though she was waiting for me to bring up that issue. Here, a gift for my dear Moses. It's a prosthetic arm. A one-of-a-kind arm, you know. You won't find anything like this in the city. I spent tons of money on this. It is extremely unusual for DS to consider any expenditure large. Whatever this thing is, it must be a work of insanity. With this arm equipped, Ujat will be able to locate you. You can also communicate with me. That means I'll have to listen to your soddy voice wherever I am. Which means that this thing is a shackle. Heavy fetters attached to my ankles that won't let me escape no matter how or where I go. How many distortions do you want captured? Until I'm satisfied. I'm holding back my boiling urge to punch that face. Yes, you are to secure distortions until Lady DS is satisfied the amount. And? Do you remember that black box you saw in the Tower Young Produce Co? Yes. That box was procured from L Corp's nest. You're telling me to find and bring more of those boxes as well? The black box that generated distortions. DS collects distortions, and plans to create them herself. So that's how it is. With the technology in her hand, she might be able to achieve whatever filthy dream she has. And why should I take this job? Because this might be your chance to atone for your past, Doctor. I took out my smoking pipe and bit it in my mouth. Please remain calm. I'm saying this sincerely. I puffed out smoke. Dr. Moses, please refrain from smoking at the dinner table. Vesper scowled at me and grouched in a deep voice. I don't mind it. Don't give him any attention and smoke all you want, Moses dear. DS resorted right away. I internally let out a deep sigh and put the pipe back in my pocket. We'd like you to lend a hand as well, Vesper sir. Why is that? Because you might be reinstated in the wing with Milady's help. ... I'll regard that silence as a sign of agreement. Okay, let's make this whole deal make sense. Where do you want us to begin? We have multiple candidates. Laundry of Dreams, the Human Thunderbolt, the Library, Yesterday's Promise, the 8 o'clock Circus, the Church of Gears, Man-Eating Sandwich... That's enough. All ungraceful names. That's how the associations usually designate names for these cases. I'll start with the Laundry of Dreams. Is its grade? Urban legend. An urban legend. Should be good exercise. The library is an urban legend as well. What do you think about that one? I don't get good vibes out of it. Understood. I'll be taking off tomorrow. What? But Moses, I wouldn't mind if you stayed here and played with me for a week or so. I left her behind and headed outside. I enjoy a bit of solitude on the terrace, smoking from my pipe. It's quite a contrast to the scenery I usually see from my office. The yard of this mansion seems endless. Beautiful lights illuminate the vast garden. Detective, are you really going to be alright? Urza came to my side and asked. Have you mellowed out, Urza? Yeah, I get it. That was the only option you had, but promise not to use the pale breath ever again for real this time. I know what it does. If you use that power, your lifespan gets... Urza, I know better than anyone. Of course I value my own life. I made that choice to use it so we could survive. Hey, go to bed now. We've got work tomorrow. Detective, about the atonement thing Heejun Sanbei mentioned. Are you really going through it? Yes. The morning draws on. I equipped the prosthetic arm DS gave me and prepared myself for the trip. Han Heejun is waiting for us at the garden entrance, next to a black van. Vesper and Urza are loading the boot of the van with various gadgets. I placed my pipe in my mouth. Lady DS departed at dawn for someplace else. She wanted to say her apologies for not giving you a proper farewell. Right, I popped the smoke from my pipe. And Miss Yuria, there's no need to pose as a normal teddy bear in front of me. Han Heejun quietly spoke to Yuria, who was sitting on my shoulder. The plush doll flinched a little. Ujat will send an outpost near Nest L. You may head into the nest first. Guess we'll have to go by car with Urza as our driver. Maybe I should bring sickness pills. I'll take the wheel. Vesper showed up from behind and walked toward the driver's seat. Are you a good driver? You won't be disappointed. I got in the van with a bitter smile. This pitiful young man has become yet another toy in DS's hands. Doctor, I will be contacting you later. I gestured at him to sod off soon after. The van engines roared to life as it began to move. It's the beginning of another damned journey.